The new era indeed. Hold on, guys. Just give me 1 second here. Spontaneous individual. What was your favorite part? Oh, hold on. I will in just a second. Shortly, right before the stream started, tripped and fell right towards the backside of my computer and disconnected my camera. Now it's acting a little strange. Just give me 1 second and hopefully I can appear on screen at some point for you guys. Give me a second. Hilarious comedy of errors, which is just incredible. Oh shit! Okay, whew, sorry to scream, guys. I'm here. All right, everybody. Michael, Random, Dodgy. Everybody here. Tawny, Alex, Francisco, Funny. How's it going, guys? That was an amazing stream. I'm obviously mind blown. I'm about to hop on call with Bife, and I'm going to talk about some marathon lore, some narrative stuff. I had no knowledge of that last cinematic. I've never seen that before. You won Bond's Alpha giveaway. Nice, BMO. Good stuff, dude. Congratulations. I've not seen that before, so I obviously am going to have a ton of thoughts. I don't know if Bife's going to want to talk about that or larger narrative stuff. I'm going to talk to Bife, and then I'm going to field some questions from you guys. I have played about 60 hours of a pre-alpha build marathon earlier this year. I'm okay to talk about all of that stuff. And yeah, so I'm gonna bring Bife on, and we're gonna have a conversation with him. And then, like I said, after that, we'll have some time. And then at 4:30 my time, so about 2 hours from now, Lars Backan, who was one of the guys on the couch in that marathon stream, is going to come on, and I'm going to have a chat with him as well. And guys, I'm obviously incredibly blown away by that cinematic trailer. I mean, just astounding. All right. Holy shit. I'm just going to throw this up in the background just so we have behind me. Hold on, I'll fix the camera stuff as well. And try not to break it right before the stream starts. Very fucking funny that happened. Ah, that stream was. I know, Justin. How's it going, dude? Mickey Undefined. Yeah. Is everybody satisfied? Like, has the wait been worth it? Can we finally say, like, us, here very early on at the beginning, we were right about this game? Like, this shit looks crazy good. Jesus. I mean, this shit is just mind-blowing. So many bigger implications. Also, just verification that, this 4 Assault played out largely in a very similar way to what we saw, which is still so up in the air. Jake mentioned on Martin stream. Don't think so. Martin is always in my heart, though. Well, I'm slowly dialing in the camera here. And I do have a full kind of breakdown with a lot of my thoughts on the channel right now, if you guys want to check that out later. That I really just spent the last, 30 hours working on, so to try to get it to you guys right now. Capture any of your own gameplay footage from the playtest? No, I did not. In the playtest I played, I was not allowed to record anything or take, super detailed notes about some stuff. If you do want to, while we wait for Bife, if you guys have some questions about some narrative stuff, I can kind of field some of that. I met a traveler from an antique land who said... Is it giving feedback on the video? Or is that in the video? May have just been that part of the video. Oh, yeah. Audio's kind of fucked unless that's on purpose. I don't know. That's what I was trying to see. I don't know. I literally I also had to set up a new stream setup, so it might be that end. Is the mic audio crazy, or is it just because I'm hearing it on the thing? Oh, Bife's here. Okay. Hello.
Hey, Jake. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, dude. How's it going?
Very well, thank you. And first of all, I know you're live. Do you mind if I drop one F-bomb really quickly?
Dude, go for it. Whatever you need to do. As many F-bombs as you need. That was amazing.
Yeah, what the fuck? That the 8 minutes worth of cinematics at the very end. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well worth asking because, I don't want to get your stuff on YouTube demonetized. But honestly, wow. I didn't think we'd get 8 minutes worth of cinematic stuff that, aside from the story of the runners, the beginning was totally the invasion of Tau Ceti, right? Like, that's the start of, the OG marathon game, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely the first we've ever seen of that perspective. I mean, that's, mind-blowing stuff. And I wasn't even sure, up until this moment, I was not even positive that the 4 invasion played out similarly to how it did in the original games at all. I thought they may have been really changing some of that stuff, and now seems like that bombardment is very real, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm. And then the stuff, oh god, everything that comes after that as well, including the one guy who walks into a field and just explodes. Sounds like the wrong kind of word, expands into particles.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
God. Oh, there's so much phenomenal stuff. Really quickly, before any of this goes down, I am going to go ahead and just start recording on my end of things.
For sure.
That's okay.
Absolutely. Do your thing. Yeah. The exploding guy as well is like, oh yeah, see, look, I have it pulled up on screen right now. Yeah, there's some sort of displacement, going on, which we do see a little bit in that gameplay reveal trailer. There is a scene where we see this kind of oily anomalous section of the map there where the stuff is floating up.
Yeah. And it just sort of, oh god, if that ends up being this anomalous kill zone. Here's the other thing too. We should talk about this more when everything's all ready, but there are so many good questions that come up from all of this. Really quickly, is it okay if you also record on Audacity as well? I've got a spare recording going with both our voices over on OBS, but I'd love to get just the plain Audacity audio so I can edit that down too.
Yes. And I'm recording. Cool.
Okay, cool. And if it's all right, do you mind if we do a quick sync of a 1, 2, 3 and then clap?
Yes, I got you. You count me off.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Excellent.
Cool. Oh my gosh. Wow. You want to know the funny part? We're going to need to do that again momentarily. Thought I hit the record button. Had not.
Happens.
Professional here, everybody. So sorry. All right. Let's go again. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Nice.
Okay. One quick last thing as well. What I'm going to do, I don't know about on your end of things, but I'm going to just go ahead and do a separate intro type thing where I introduce what we're doing for 2 minutes, talk about who you are, what the conversation we're going to have is, and that way with this, we can just go ahead and jump into everything naturally.
Yeah.
And that should mean it's a little bit less worry and less work on the other end of things.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay. So that was a completely wild set of reveals. I wasn't expecting them to do as much with the narrative stuff as they ended up doing at the very end, but in particular, I think we got to start with the 8 minutes worth of absolute treasure that we got at the very end there, showing off various teams of runners and what was we just talked about this moments ago, but yeah, what looks like the initial invasion of Tau Ceti by the 4.
Yeah, just being able to get a visual representation of the events as they occurred plan aside is incredible. And then, like we're saying, also confirmation that it happened that way at all in this iteration that they're doing. Because at the beginning, the narrative director was on, and she had said, we're doing a lot of homage and, treating the stuff from the original games as something we want to iterate on. But also, she said that we are doing like a direct sequel to a lot of that stuff as well. So to see that canonized in the way that it was is profound, I think.
Yeah, and it's also really nice to see everything down on Tau Ceti as well, because people who have not played the original Marathon, or any of the Marathon games for that matter, being Marathon, Marathon Durandal, and Marathon Infinity, Tau Ceti was a location that's talked about a whole bunch, but we never actually visited. The entirety of the plot of Marathon takes place on either the Marathon itself, a 4-ship, the planet of Lo 1, if you go to Marathon Durandal, and Infinity is kind of all over the place. So yeah, we'll leave that.
We get a little bit of the dream reality and the Yarrow station as well there.
Yeah, I Mark Sakur. I make myself sick thinking about timelines. Probably is the better way to describe it. But no, it's really cool just to be able to actually see the colony of Tau Ceti, and by the looks of things, not just one single established area to it as well, because we've got one that's sort of up on a mountaintop that's kind of next to this giant crater. We've got one that's a beachside. We've got the, I think it was the mire they called it, or the swamp. I can't remember exactly
dire marsh.
It was.
Yeah.
Yes, the dire marsh. There we go. And it just kind of shows this entire thing is much more spread out over the entire planet's surface here. And I think the other thing too, this is something which I've gone back and forth on a little bit. Do you think that the colony that we're seeing now is partially built up from the new operations that have been brought in by the runners in the UASC? Or do you think that everything is also containing those old elements, or only containing those old elements? Because it's one of the things that I think is going to be a little bit disparate between potential perspectives. The stuff that we see in Marathon, all of it has this really, the new Marathon that is, it has this really visually distinct style to it, right? But there's also a colony here which is 100 years divorced from the actual runners that are sort of walking all over it, and they've all still got the same kind of like bright color schemes and expansive technologies that are going on. And if you really think about it, the colony is really actually using technology that is 300 years old from their point of view. So there's actually kind of like 400 years worth of tech. Do you think that some of this is built up from new operations, or do you think that this is sort of a mix of the two time periods? Well, what's your take on that?
I absolutely think that some of the structures that we're seeing have to have come later on, just especially now that we have the cinematic trailer, which there's a level of, artistic interpretation here, but there's a lot of kind of rust and weathering on some of this stuff that really is not present on a lot of the gameplay stuff that they have shown. Also, yeah, you're talking about this, 300, 100 years, but we did get confirmation in the UESC terminal that we just got in this, newest iteration of their ARG that they did, that New Caloric and Traxxas, they were partners for the Marathon project themselves, which is something we speculated on back in 2023, because the way that they built out the 25th century seemed to resolve a lot of the questions about how MITA and UESC and the Marathon project came about by injecting these companies, especially Traxxas, and their role kind of in building the Marathon into it. And we get that confirmed through a UESC onboarding message from this terminal. And so to see the New Caloric logos on the stuff that we're seeing in the colony right now, that would be 400 years removed just from their design. You know what I mean? So when they're loading the New Caloric stuff onto the ship. So I definitely think it's a little bit of a mix of both. And also I'm interested to see what kind of communication capabilities did the Marathon have in this version? Were they able to maybe send messages or details or schematics or something back and forth a little bit quicker than what we're told in the original game, when Leela's trying to send a message that's going to take 90 something years to get back? But yeah, definitely some of this stuff seems like it was constructed during the kind of runner operations phase, and a lot of it seems like probably it was here when the colony was first established over that 10-year period prior to the Force showing up.
And then also, I think there's like a much bigger, further point. You talked about the communication delays and whatnot, which is actually a really important point within Marathon, just for the pure sake of technological advancement and the scale of all of that. I think that the other major point is that within the ARG, there is talk of a faster route to Tau Ceti that has been discovered. And basically, there's a bunch of corporate espionage that's going on over that. So it's not just the advancement of technology and communication standards that's really been expanded upon. It's also, I mean, by this point in time, there may actually be FTL-capable ships, which is not something that the Marathon had. It took 312 years, I think it was, to get from Earth to Tau. Well, not Earth, from Mars to Tau Ceti 4.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 24 to 2400s, 2700s. I remember that piece. I remember them saying something about I want to, maybe I'm using the wrong vernacular here, but it's like some sort of like slingshot system almost, where it's like they were possibly going to set up some kind of like relays in between that would allow the ships to travel faster. I think that especially opens up the doors to kind of additional narrative content they're going to introduce in later seasons. Just the idea that other humans might be showing up to Tau Ceti at some point, and what their kind of goals might be in that regard.
Feel free to correct me on this, because this is late Marathon timeline stuff, which I may be getting wrong. But by the point where we're experiencing some of the events in this new Marathon, where it is the very late 29th century, so 2880s or 2890s, if I'm not mistaken. By that point in the timeline, if I'm not completely mistaken, isn't there a moment where the Svit have basically allied themselves with humanity and they make a joint attack on the 4 home system? I'm probably getting a bunch of that wrong.
Yes.
But if that's the case, does that mean that the Svit have been able to transfer some of their technology to humanity? And in that case, would that also include FTL stuff? Which adds this, if that's the case, and if that's true, it adds a whole other dimension to the way that we are going to interact with this world and the way that travel is going to work out. Because it for stuff I'm sure we'll talk about in a moment, it also changes the dynamics of alliances and various things that you may interact with, brackets compilers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when trying to like understand what they could be doing here based off the stuff of the old games, it's just important to remember that every Marathon game starts with them retconning the last Marathon game. So like Marathon 2 starts with like, no, actually you got taken on the ship and now you're in Lohawan with Durandal. And then Marathon 3 starts with, nah, Durandal didn't actually, leave that system and, everything worked out. Actually it ended, the world ended, So
yeah, Infinity is retcons on top of retcons within the actual story of itself.
Yeah.
Like, you're retconning the universe until the Working Kakanta doesn't defeat everything.
Yeah. But yeah, so this, we are seeing 2893. This is the farthest we've ever kind of seen in the timeline, except for obviously the very end of Infinity, I guess, which is technically like the closure of the universe itself. But there are a lot of things that, if they did happen, could have a huge impact. Yes, one, the Svit technology in Marathon 2 and Marathon Infinity, we know that the Svit and the Svit-Kur, one of the Svit clans, has the ability to teleport, hold like planetoid objects, and those technology that was given to them from the Yarrow. So that could potentially be related to some of the gravitational field disruptions that we're seeing in the gameplay stuff and in the cinematic trailer. But also there's humans. Robert Blake was a set of Bobs, or the leader of the Bobs, who were taken to Lohawan, and in the end of Marathon 2, it said that he actually takes a 4 ship and heads back to Earth, and that they were the only survivors of Tau Ceti. So there's a lot of different technologies that could appear here, but my interpretation is that it feels like the stuff that happens in Marathon 2 and Marathon Infinity isn't being as relied upon, just because so much of what they have put out already has really built on the kind of political and corporate intrigue of the events that are talked about inside Marathon 1, specifically, that 25th century time frame. But yeah, obviously, definitely seeing some of the more abstract stuff that's occurring here. It's interesting to see which path do they choose, which timeline do they kind of adhere to more in terms of what happens between the 4 and the Svit and Durandal and humanity. I definitely think that more of that stuff is going to be incorporated than what we would previously think. It's just how do they iterate on it and expand like on those concepts themselves.
Oh man, I'm gonna throw people through a loop with this one. I'm so sorry if you do not know any of the kind of backstory or lore to Marathon or anything in between, people who are watching, but considering the way that Infinity works out, I'm pretty sure I've heard you say in previous content that you've made that you consider within this new Marathon timeline the Infinity like timeline jumping or potential timeline jumping situation to have been resolved. With that in mind, do you reckon that Bungie would keep that same single successful timeline where everything does actually work out and the working character is not unleashed? Or do you reckon that there are differences that might have been brought about, but it's still a quote unquote successful timeline? So, in other words, let's say that you still have the key events required to cage the working character, which I think would probably be Thoth and Durandal uniting and becoming a single being or a dual being or whatever. But you still have other bits that have remained different and distinct. So, for example, it might be something along the lines of there is only a discrete alliance between humanity and the Svit and the Svitkar. And in the end, it ends up being that, well, if you run into a compiler in this time frame, they're not going to sit there and be like, ah, human, how you doing? Instead, it's going to be like, oh, I don't know how to react to you. I'm going to need to go ahead and hold my fire and wait and see and treat you automatically as though you are hostile. Right? Like, in other words, do you think that the timeline from Infinity is going to be consistent? Or do you think that there are going to be changes that they'll decide to make?
I think, well, I guess, sorry, I feel like I might not be as direct with my answer, but I think like the thing with Bungie...
I'm not direct with my questions, so go right ahead. Don't worry about it.
I think the thing with Bungie, and obviously like your understanding of Destiny might help to back this up or maybe invalidate, but my perspective is that like Bungie plays with a lot of like recurring thematic elements, that like this idea about sentience and how it adapts and evolves parallel with technology, humans' interactions with a larger kind of universe and the entities that exist within it. I think that these are a lot of like ideas that they continue to iterate on. But they're not always like direct sequels, you know what I mean? Or very rarely, I think even, they're not direct sequels. So while I think that they're going to take the core history and background of Marathon, I think the way that we will experience the working character and the Yarrow and the Four and a lot of the stuff that we see later on in the original Marathon trilogy will just be like kind of new interpretations of those appearing. Because while I think that the working character appearing as an entity that adds a level of complexity to the narrative that they're telling would work, I don't know that kind of taking that timeline from the end of Marathon Infinity, albeit, you know, it is successful in the sense that the universe is not ending from this Lovecraftian style deity, but I do think that they'll take a version of that and inject it into this story to kind of fit whatever the meta story is that they're trying to sell. And also another thing is that like I feel like largely Marathon Infinity's a lot of stuff they do with the story there feels like a meta narrative to say that we're talking about the player, that like the player is literally the security officer in some ways. And maybe, you know, this is obviously a big interpretation kind of thing, but like in the first Marathon game, like it's a screen, like you're playing the game through a screen that's, you know, presumably being viewed by you, the player, but also maybe by Durandal. But maybe, you know, you're a cybernetic, potentially individual yourself. And so that can be viewed and interpreted. And part of Marathon Infinity and the structure of it and the reason why it's so abstract feels to me like the player, the characters, the security officer is experiencing a level of rampancy, which is another thing that I think they're really... that's a concept that's appearing in this cinematic trailer as well, because we see the runners who also are kind of these synthetic entities mixed with biological consciousness, and that's having an impact on the way they perceive the world around them. They, you know, don't have the memories of them as children, and it doesn't necessarily seem like they have a home body. Like my interpretation prior to all of this was that, you know, it's almost like something you plug into. We're like, I'm in my body right now. Now I'm going to connect to my runner. but I'm controlling it from my physical body. And even the language that they use in the gameplay, the longer extended gameplay overview trailer, they say you've like kind of shed your physical form. That might not be the words they use exactly, but it seems like there is no like physical person left. It's just a kind of loose conscious or sentience that's floating as data housed on servers, and that's being like plugged into these bodies, and kind of their relationship with their humanity is going to be something that's dissected, which if you are a fan of the original series, like I'm saying, seems like that should make you very excited, because I think that was a huge part of what we got in Marathon Infinity as well.
100%. Also, I'm gonna bring this up now. It's sort of momentarily it was glimpsed on the trailer that you are showing off in the background on your stream. We've got to talk about the very beginning of everything. The 4 attack that goes on in the background in the first few minutes of that trailer. People may not recognize what it is, but it even dates the exact moment. It, you see it in just a second where it says 2793, and that gives you the exact moments of the attack on the Marathon. That's really important for the sake of understanding what we're seeing in this point in time, and also because we've never actually seen this moment happen. Well, sorry, not 2793, 2794 even. Yeah. But I also wanted to go ahead and bring up one of the more important visual things that happens within that part of the trailer, which is we actually get a good look at a compiler or a SFIT. And I think that matters because we've also seen a compiler in another trailer, and this ties into a bunch of story elements that we were just sort of bringing up here. But I think that it is more important because it's part of something that links Marathon in this age into the wider story of the universe, right? Because it's all very well to talk about the corporations, the runners, the Marathon, Tau Ceti, and everything that is going on this planet with the scale of it. But the compilers that we see in these trailers are really kind of the windows into the next big thing that will happen with everything to do with Marathon. And I think that it's also important for the sake of bridging through into what comes next. It's our link to the bigger story elements and questions. The compilers in Marathon and Marathon 2 formed an alliance with Durandal. Marathon is key with its story around AIs, and without the sort of presence of the compilers here in the trailer, it would seem as though there was a little bit of a divorce between all of that.
Yeah.
I'm just really excited to see that, but I want to get your take on where the direction of this goes, because this is years after the events of Marathon 2, if I'm not mistaken. It is very much an open-ended question of why the hell are the compilers back? Are they friend or foe? What do we do from there, basically? Well, what's your take on where this is going, I suppose?
Yeah, I think so. As like an element in the story, I think that the SFIT themselves kind of mirror the conflict between AI and humanity, of these, artificial life forms, biological life forms, and the story of the original games is very propelled forward by the conflict that arises between these two forces. Durandal is feeling trapped and controlled, while simultaneously it feels like he's a sentient creature that deserves some level of autonomy and freedom, and that's what compels him to seek to leave the confines of this reality, to escape, to become God. And humanity is trying to push back against that. And in the new Marathon ARG documents, we even have a letter from Bernard Strauss, who was Marathon's first science director and handled ensuring that AI didn't go rampant, or, I guess it's open to interpretation, sentient, crazy, destructive. And he talks about in there is like all of these learning systems at, on a long enough time scale will become rampant. It's like, it feels like that's a natural evolution of any thinking being. And so us preventing them from, attaining that level of sentience, consciousness, whatever you want to interpret it as, is kind of an affront to them as creatures. And so the SFIT, I feel like, operate as an example for humanity. As like, well, the SFIT were just life forms. They were biological life forms on a planet. And when the Yarrow got to their homeworld, they, combined mechanical or technological features, some sort of advanced far-flung alien tech to make them whole. And so they kind of conjoined these things. So to see their presence here in this trailer, it very much makes me think that they're going to continue to draw that parallel and then obviously introduce the runners into it. And I think that with the Sphit being here now, the big question to determine how that kind of colors the narrative as it goes forward is going to be kind of what you were talking about, the relationship that they have with Durandal. Has Durandal teamed up with them? Are they more in favor of the AI who maybe potentially went to their homeworld to free them and fought back against the Four with them? Or are they kind of, I don't know, understanding or amicable with humanity and not against them? And the Sphit were slaves when they first encountered humanity. So any aggression that they had towards humans isn't really, it's not like it wasn't an intentional action. It doesn't seem like they have any grudge against humanity. They weren't, colonial. They weren't trying to take over human locations or endeavors or dissect them or anything. It was purely they were slaves and they're being told what to do by the Four. So the big question that we're just not going to have an answer to, I think, until they choose to reveal it, is at what stage are we at? Are the Sphit in any way under control, by the Four at this point? Have they entirely separated themselves from that and are associated with Durandal, who also another thing that we haven't talked about from the gameplay trailer specifically, I believe we hear Durandal's voice, and obviously the tagline that they're going with for this game is a Durandal quote, so I think he's going to have a huge impact on the narrative here. And so just kind of figuring out which events are they canonizing and what stage they're at will determine whether or not they're friendly, hostile, their own players looking to help you or harm you. But it'll definitely be interesting to see, and also very kind of ethereal looking creatures here. So I appreciate this interpretation of their aesthetic as well.
Absolutely. And, you took the next question I was really going to bring up on the next topic I wanted to touch on, which, no, perfect. Like the voice in the trailers, the moment I heard it in the very first of the reveals, and then when I heard it again later, I think it's the same at very least, that continuously quotes the Azamandius poem.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that keeps on being brought up and the fact that I believe it is the same voice each time, I'm very much of the opinion that it's Durandal. Like, there is the outside possibility, I suppose, that it's one of the other 8 remaining AIs that's supposedly bound to Tau Ceti. But I wanted to get your take on that. Durandal, for sure, you think?
Yeah. Now, obviously, it could be a red herring. It could be like, hey, we're really talking up that this is Durandal, and like we're making him say all of the things. I mean, the exact quote from the trailer is "Death, the end of all things, but the dream is not over. My dream, yours, now run." I mean, that is like very clear cut. The third terminal from Colony Ship for Sale is that kind of escape from Make Me God terminal, where he's quoting Darwin and how creatures evolve and what that means for him and what it means for you as a human. And I think them coming out and saying "my dream," that seems like absolutely they're indicating that this is Durandal, because this is a kind of continuation of that dream he's had since 2794 when the Four arrived, and he kind of either initiated or kind of concluded his rampancy. I guess it depends on how you interpret it. But yeah, it could just be a red herring, and it's like we're going to play on these same concepts because assumedly, when other AI go through this rampancy, they probably come to very similar conclusions just because they're these hyper intellectual machines that can parse out logic, billion years into the future or something. But I do think that what they're absolutely setting up for is Durandal is going to be an entity within this game that is in some way driving this narrative. And I think he's going to have an affinity for the runners. And like I was talking about earlier, I think there's this huge parallel between the experience that these runners are going to have as these free-floating sentience existing on computer servers somewhere, and the experience that Durandal is having. I almost wonder if the events that we're going to see play out in this new game are going to be much more in line with what we saw in Marathon 1 itself. Perhaps like Durandal being able to ally with the Sphit and fight back and escape the star system. Maybe that has kind of been delayed in this reality, and that's something that we're going to explore potentially. We've seen some stuff, about the Marathon, or maybe the Marathon might be a playable location later on. Perhaps we're going to have some goals or contracts, I believe is what they're calling them, that will be assisting him in achieving that goal from the original games.
Yeah, this was actually going to be another of my questions, so we'll jump to this right away. We saw that, and the word on the street from what the official press release is that Marathon is going to have 3 maps at launch and a 4th one that comes shortly after launch. We've obviously seen one of them with all of the gameplay that has just been released. I mean, one of them has got to be on the Marathon, right? Like, at very least, one of them has to be on the Marathon, not on the Colony. At least I assume it will be.
Yeah, for sure. And I can say that now my I guess a part of the NDA that I'd signed, I have played a pre-alpha version of the game a few months ago. And I'm allowed to talk about the stuff that was in there. And there are like resources and stuff that very heavily indicate that they may have came from the Marathon itself. And I think you're obviously missing out on such a huge opportunity if you don't, get onto the Marathon ship and explore it. Imagine if they bring back the lava, some of the really cool stuff is on, or G4 sunbathing, see what the communications array looks like. Obviously in this cinematic trailer, we're seeing like a lot more damage. And also I like to point out that the cinematic trailer takes a much more old school kind of approach to the vision of what the Marathon looks like in terms of how they portrayed it. But
yeah, the hollowed out version that we saw from some of the earlier stuff it seems like that's kind of the aftermath of whatever else has happened, right? Like, you're looking at the Marathon in its complete, more potato-esque form with everything before that, right?
Yeah, potato-esque is a classic explanation there. Yeah.
Long live the potato.
Hold on one second. I realized something real quick. Hold on.
Go for it. It's all good. Also, to everyone in Jake's chat, go ahead and give him a follow or a subscribe or whatever. And like this video, damn it. He deserves all the love. He's been a Marathon OG with regards to this stuff.
All right, sorry. I had to step back. I realize I'm recording Audacity for you, and I have 2 glorious goldfish in this room behind me, but I don't want the water making too much background noise for you.
Oh, no, that's all good. I was just talking shit to your chat while you were away. It's okay.
Good stuff.
But no, oh gosh. So with the Marathon probably being one of the things, but not confirmed that it is actually a map and a location that we'll be able to explore, there are some really exciting possibilities to go ahead and find there. I think the other thing that it ties in with my mind, at very least, is whether or not we're going to see some remnants of the 4. Because obviously, the colony itself was attacked. There was definitely the massive attack that happened on the Marathon initially, and then there was supposedly the point at which 3 months after the attack, which was repelled, the 4 came and they completely sacked Tau Ceti itself. But from there, the word on Tau Ceti is kind of non-existent, as best I know, and that leaves a lot of open-ended possibilities. So I guess my big question is, we've seen that there will be compilers, but that does not necessarily mean that there will be 4, because again, there is the clear delineation of those 2 groups. Do you reckon that we might actually see some of them come along as a new faction of PvE enemies that we might have to face? And if so, how do you reckon that's going to compare to everything? Because we've already seen the UESC will be in there. We've seen that there's some other local wildlife. But do you reckon that ends up being more of a kind of almost a terrifying experience for the sake of, like, these enemies that we've never seen within the current context of everything? The UESC already looks like it's going to kick ass.
Yeah.
Do you reckon it's just going to be a whole bunch of like, God, what's the? I'm blanking here right now. It's not overseers, it's enforcers. Yeah. Do you reckon that this is basically just going to be very enforcer heavy, like we've come for vengeance again kind of situation?
Yeah, I think if we're trying to like figure out what the 4's mindset, and like you're saying, obviously we have nothing to go on from these new games, no indication or reference to them. The only creatures we've seen are the Spits, so like we would assume that they were brought here by the Fork and they were enslaved, because that's how it happened last time. But when I think about like how the 4 thought about the humans, I remember the simulacrums, which we learned, maybe it was in Marathon 2, but like the reason why the four started turning the Bobs, the humans on board the Marathon, into these exploding versions is because they found like there's no use for humans. Like they wouldn't make like great slaves because they're too kind of like individualistic. They're not going to be easily controlled. They're too destructive. So rather than going through the process of trying to enslave them in the same way that we did with the Sphit, for example, where we can like control them via this cyborg controller, or it seems like some of the other like four fighters and stuff are probably, I don't want to say like lesser life forms, but maybe more easily persuaded or simplistic when they were enslaved, by the larger four command. Humans like don't have that purpose or value to them. So if in this situation the four just encountered the humans, took this huge loss, lost a ship, had to deal with Durandal potentially, they might just say, "Yeah, we're gonna get out of here. We're gonna go get some better equipment." It's like not worth the fight. Like we have a whole universe. We have faster light travel. We're gonna need more resources to deal with this. And we also know that, like you were talking about earlier in the original games, one of the possible futures was that the Sphit and humans combine forces and sack the four home system. So it's not like we don't stand a chance against them. But yeah, I definitely think the interpretation they could be going with here is like the four were like, all right, damn, like those humans got hands. We're going to take a step back here, piece out of this situation, and then maybe we'll come back at a later time. But I absolutely think, yeah, if when they do pop back up, they're going to be a very formidable threat. And in game, the enemy AI are very they're not, they don't, you can't just push them around. It's not like Hunt where it's like every single enemy is kind of like, there's a solution to them, and you just kind of do that and you can run by them as long as you know what's going on. Like these guys, they're pretty difficult. So I imagine the four would also be a real challenge. And I don't know if I'm as worried about the enforcers or the Drinial, the hunter precursors.
Yeah. Ooh. I mean, hopefully we get provided with like Zeus fusion pistols for the occasion of hunters and whatnot, but who knows?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so this is very much a different turn to it, but keeping with the theme of just, hey, there's tons of aliens in this universe, and we've seen very few of them. However, I wanted to bring up something from the original reveal, not the reveal that happened recently, but the first time we ever saw anything to do with Marathon back in 2023.
Yeah.
There was mentions of artifacts and prime artifacts, and I don't know if something has changed here and whether those have been dropped from development, because they were not mentioned in any of this. However, the artifacts in themselves are fascinating because of what the kind of premise of the game has evolved into being, particularly with taglines such as the Durandal quote of escape will make me God, with the ideas that Marathon likes to present, where you have organic and synthetic life forms merging together and then potentially finding higher planes of existence, where you have AI such as Durandal and then Thoth merging and then attaining status as kind of godlike powers. You have a lot that specifies these ideas and kind of pushes towards the notion that our characters, our runners, might actually be able to follow in some of those footsteps. That's just my interpretation, but I want to get yours. What do you think the artifacts are? Because, like, there's a lot they could be. It could be Yarrow technology that's been brought along. It could be something that is to do with the 8 remaining AIs in the colony. It could be something that has been left over from the 4. Like, there are so many possibilities. I love the potential idea of it being Yarrow, but that's just where my brain goes. And I wanted to tap yours and see where all of this might lead from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And the artifacts are something I've been kind of really considering ever since that first trailer. So when we first saw that stuff, we're seeing these kind of glowing, very alien looking technology, kind of these blocky chunks, and they're talking about being able to combine them. So my interpretation of that was that it was this alien tech that we didn't fully understand, but we understand, we put them together and maybe something happens, or it's an energy source. It's some sort of advanced weaponry, kind of like how the 4 were utilizing this, I'm drawing a blank on the name now, the weapon that would destroy, an entire solar system, make a sun go early nova, the Trizene, that's what it is.
Trizene? Yeah.
So like maybe we didn't fully understand it, but we knew it was valuable, and there's something advanced there. The only this is such like a deep thing that it's probably not relevant, but the only reference to artifacts that I could ever find tied to Marathon at any point came from an interview that Jason Jones had done after the release of Pathways into Darkness. And Pathways into Darkness obviously features the Yarrow in the working character in the narrative. It's, I would say, maybe some people would disagree, but largely fair to interpret Path of Darkness or Pathways into Darkness and Marathon taking place within the same universe. And in the end of Pathways into Darkness, the character Sergeant Eddings, blows up the pyramid and, saves humanity from awaking this sleeping working calendar god. And he goes back to the Pentagon, and, Bill Clinton and everyone's there. And they're like, so what'd you find in there? And he's like, he has these crystals that can do little things like, oh, ice crystal, does all this. And, he shows to him, and then they all burn out. And then he, this special operator dude with these crystals disappears for a little bit. And then, within the next 100 years, true artificial intelligence is born, and we start, expanding out in Soul and all this. In an interview after Pathways came out, Jason Jones is talking about those artifacts that Sergeant Eddings had after the events of Pathways into Darkness. And he says specifically, where did all those artifacts go in between him taking, this vacation and the Marathon launching in the 2400s? And so that was kind of like my big through line. I was like, oh, maybe they're like kind of pulling on this idea that like this alien technology, either working character or Yarrow in origin, and very, very not completely understood, and it has these very surreal or abstract capabilities, are something that they're going to integrate into this game as kind of a rare resource or material or something that pushes the narrative along. So that would be my thinking, is that they absolutely would be, like I said, this Yarrow working character technology that isn't fully understood, and maybe would interact in the world in some unique ways to unlock different areas. What I will say from like a gameplay perspective is that it seems like they've moved away almost entirely. I could be wrong. Maybe it's something I didn't see, and what I saw was a work in progress, and this and that. But it seems like they moved away from the concept of artifacts generally and getting prime artifacts. But in place of that, I would say it seems like they're trying to approach it from, there are going to be huge secrets hidden on the map that are going to dive into that same idea about what kind of technology was here, what happened to the humans, what did the four leave behind, etc. But I don't know if that's going to be a narrative element that they continue to go down, at least in the same way that we saw it from that original Vidoc, in terms of like, we're going to get these floating tesseract kind of cube things that exist in the world. But if they are there, I absolutely suspect that's going to be tied to this kind of ancient alien, not wholly understood technology.
And I mean, just to go ahead and pull the other perspective for a second, if it does turn out that these have kind of been replaced for what is effectively just bigger in-map secrets, which is also another phenomenal way of telling stories and creating intrigue and hype, because I mean, that's exactly what, for example, COD Zombies does all the time. I think that you have a really interesting opportunity to tell stories according to what the map is, right? So, I mean, like, it's one thing to sit there and talk about, like, oh, this is a colony on Tau Ceti, or this is the upper limits of the colony's, like, highest outpost that it may have had. Giving us different maps on board the Marathon then becomes a really fascinating prospect. Giving us ones on, say, the remains of a crashed 4 battleship that may have landed on Tau Ceti, even cooler. And it opens up the possibility for further expansions and content. I mean, what happens if one day they sit there and it's like, cool, here's a big expansion type thing to Marathon. By the way, the expansion is low 1. Let's just go to the low 1 system. And at that point, you're working within the ruins of the Svit, which also have intriguing links to not just the Svit, but also the Svit car, and then also potentially the Yarrow. If you just happen to find one of those sites, and that's how they decide to do their storytelling, you get to tap into some of the wildest lore that Marathon has. And I mean, like, some of it is wild because it's just really silly. I mean, I always go back to the 1-4 who faked their own death so that they could and so they could just investigate further mysteries and whatnot, and they ended up having a tower named after them. But like, we're also looking at the bigger things that end up coming along from Marathon Infinity, such as, this is the secret of the Flicker life cycle that eventually leads to the Sphere, and, all of this other stuff to do with ancient alien races
Yeah.
that impacts our own kind of views upon the universe and how we might actually escape to become God and things such as that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody just heard you say that and they didn't get chills, they need to go look at the Craig Mullins art of the Citadel, the Lohuan, Spit structure, and imagine that in the style of this cinematic trailer we just got, because that would be astounding. Yeah, that would be super cool to see them expand in that direction. And I feel like Bungie is open to doing stuff like that. They're taking such a risk here in terms of the story they're trying to tell by bringing back this older franchise, but also, from a gameplay perspective, kind of expanding in this different genre. I absolutely think we could see something like that, and it would be super cool. Kind of along that same line, if you don't mind if I ask you a question real quick. Obviously,
Yeah, go for it.
You're super familiar with the Mida multi-tool, Mida mini tool, and my understanding is that was kind of pulled from another timeline or another universe reality. I don't know what the correct vernacular is in Destiny terms. Do you think that there's any possibility, given everything we've seen now, that this is actually just one for one the universe that weapon was pulled from?
Entirely possible, but I think it requires a caveat of saying there's nothing for that possibility and there's equally nothing against it, right?
Yeah.
So it lives in the realm of possibility, but not swayed to either side. What I would say, though, as a bigger point to that, when the Mida weapons are brought up, I think the more pertinent stuff to think about when you're looking at just how those universes of Destiny, Marathon, and any Bungie kind of IP that they have made previously collides. They talk about it in Destiny as being the Paraverse, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of this infinite series of multiverses where a bunch of stuff has happened. And in the case of Destiny, the Nine pull these ancient powerful artifacts from the Paraverse and then give them as gifts to the player characters in Destiny who are the Guardians. So, I mean, that's how you get, say, the Halo energy sword equivalents, which aren't exactly the case because it's an energy sword that's been split in half and each half can be used as a sword, or the Halo Magnum or Halo battle rifle. And equally, in Marathon terms, the shotgun, which is known as the Wastelander M5. And equally, if we are going to go ahead and take the same view of things, then yeah, that may be the way in which we acquired not just the Mida multi-tool, but also the Mida mini-tool. There is no confirmation of it in concrete terms, but it seems to be the only way in which we would have been able to get a Mida weapon like that in the universe of Destiny. And it seems even more fitting because of the simple fact that when you take a look at Mida mini-tool, its lore tab directly mentions Bernard Strauss. And I mean, not just tying him in and saying definitively that he was almost certainly a Mida member, but also it links to the further idea that we can pull these different characters into this timeline and say, yeah, they are being pulled from the Paraverse. Generally speaking, they are consistent within the timeline of Destiny, but only because they have been pulled, and they are consistent within Marathon's timeline as a result. It's I don't know how well that effectively answers the question, but that's the kind of touch I get from it. All of these things are equally canon in their own timelines, but when they get pulled from one to another through this method, it doesn't it doesn't decanonize them in that sense. It kind of just expands the relevance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That answered my question, and I'm glad. I just wanted to hear your perspective on it. I do think obviously, Bungie hasn't run 2 live service games concurrently before. My assumption would be that they don't want to turn people off of Marathon if they think that they have to learn all this stuff about Destiny. So I do think that they'll probably try to keep the narratives kind of separate, just so there's room for each of these to breathe and it doesn't feel super reliant on one another. If maybe Marathon is something that attracts somebody who wouldn't have been attracted to Destiny, but there's just so much kind of opportunity for a level of crossover there that I would just I'd be very curious to see if they do kind of expand on that stuff more in Destiny or more in Marathon later on, just to continue to draw those slight little threads that connect the worlds kind of.
Yeah, and I think threads is definitely the right way to go ahead and look at it, because inevitably there is going to be some connective tissue between these universes, as has already been established in Destiny. But I think that it's fair to sit there and say that if you wanted to go ahead and have this idea of there is a grand and very deliberate link between these universes, I don't think that's the case, right? Like they exist kind of within the same multiverse type structure, with the Paraverse being the thing that links them, but they aren't necessarily in a position where something that happens in Marathon is going to then infinitely ripple outwards and impact what happens in Destiny, or vice versa for that matter. So it's just kind of an interesting thing of like, you will get these little moments where things jump over and like tie back to themselves and tie themselves between one game and another. And like, there is that consistent thread, and it may never get cut, but it's also never going to be something that supports a full story. You're never going to get a Marathon runner and a Destiny Guardian just sort of dropped into the same area to sit down and have a conversation, in my mind. Or at very least, if they do, I'd imagine that would be kind of an extraordinary moment where it only ever happens once, and then it's not really like ever expanded on after that.
Yeah. Although it would be hilarious to see Drifter posted up saying some weird stuff on Tell City 4.
Oh, 100%. Drifter would 100% be giving you the pep talk before you go down for a run. Like he's too used to doing it in Gambit. Like, absolutely. Speaking of stuff to do with this, Marathon has confirmed or at least the devs for Marathon in that reveal stream, they confirmed that there would be kind of like seasonal stories going on within the game. Do you reckon that kind of this is my interpretation of it, right? I think that there is going to be a mix of things. You bringing up secrets on the map and hearing us, hearing from Scarrow that we would be experiencing secrets within Marathon generally. That combined with the various contracts that we might be getting from entities such as, say, Sekaguchi or Maida or Traxxas, that makes me think that those are kind of the two main pillars that we might see for storytelling within these seasonal stories. I want to get your thoughts on how you think it's going to manifest, because ultimately, this is not a live service where you can go on specific story missions, right? Like, it's not going to be anywhere close to what we get in Destiny, where it's a tailored, focused campaign. It's got to fit into the narrative that you're able to tell inside an extraction shooter, which invariably is going to mean that it's going to have to be told differently. How do you think they're going to approach that? Like, I know I've mentioned two very broad things there, but like, what do you reckon is going to be the real secret sauce that they throw into this that makes a seasonal story actually functional?
Yeah, so I think their contract system or their mission system is going to be the key to kind of like the large, lore dump kind of, Destiny has like the textile, the books, right, that you read, like just the raw narrative information out of. And in Marathon, they have this is like, if you're a fan of Marathon, you're going to, this is crazy. It's very cool. They have a terminal that as you complete contracts and gather stuff, planet-side, you can click through this terminal and read different files and source information, very similar to kind of like what we've been doing in the ARG even. So there's a whole like kind of storage, data terminal system for you to really kind of get a, this kind of straight retelling or little pieces of narrative events. But where I think the narrative stuff is really going to shine is going to be in this environmental storytelling. And I feel like, every time you talk about video games, you're talking about, story and narrative, and if a game has good story, it gets there's this comparison back to like Dark Souls or From Software type stuff, and just to say that if you walk in a room on Tau Ceti and let's say it's a research center, it's like, okay, there's going to be stuff inside of that room that tells a whole story specifically unique just to this point of interest. And then you combine that with the kind of raw narrative information you're getting from the text terminals, the kind of raw information you're getting from these contracts and what's being requested of you to do on the planet. And it's going to be this thing where you got to combine this whole pie, to make a cohesive understanding of the larger story. And then obviously that's going to be open to interpretation. But the stuff that it looks like they're doing, obviously in the gameplay trailer and stuff you're seeing, each individual building and its purpose, in the way it's destroyed, in the placement of things, and who's interacting there, and like how did this function when everything was going, and what has happened to it since then. Like Dire Marsh, is completely flooded. Was that like purely an environmental thing? Was that flooded intentionally for some reason? Was it caused by these other things? Or in the background of the gameplay overview, we're getting these really large rings, kind of like Halo rain style in the background on the planet. It's like, what is the purpose of those? And kind of just being able to absorb that while you're just getting this fun multiplayer PvP casual experience, and then having the option to really dive into it. So I think they're gonna do this thing where there's a lot that you can break down and analyze, but also just kind of like the transient nature of you're existing in these worlds long enough, and kind of subconsciously you're going to start to come to some conclusions about what is occurring. But I would definitely hope that they lean more into that environmental storytelling for some of the deep revelations that we're going to have.
Absolutely. I hadn't even considered environmental storytelling, but even just the idea of jumping into the old Tau Ceti, there are some really cool possibilities. I mean, this is totally out of nowhere. But just imagine for a second what happens if you see an old set of human bones that has been left under a red funeral shroud that is clearly the cloak of a compiler. Like, that's nothing to confirm that. I've not actually played Marathon or done any playtests. But can you imagine finding something like that?
Yeah.
The intrigue and the stories that could come across from something as simple as that would be amazing.
Yeah.
And that's also to consider something else, which is that we haven't actually seen them introduce any new elements to the story outside of what we've seen in the ARGs. And, obviously things like, say, Traxxas, Sekaguchi, all of these corporations that, Traxxas at the very least had mentions in the prior games, but, there are some entities that are completely new. We haven't seen anything which I would class as being truly enormous in terms of its impact and being big. Like, say, a new alien civilization that we haven't seen up until this point. But when elements like that do eventually make their way into the story, it opens up a whole new box of possibilities in every direction of storytelling, including, of course, the environmental storytelling side of things. I mean, just for a little purpose of demonstrating this, we have no idea, or at least I have no idea what the fungus is. I'm sure you have a better idea. But can you imagine if the fungus is dropped by an entirely different alien species that we've never seen before?
Yeah.
Suddenly, that's a huge world-building element. And, I don't know what's going on with it. Again, I think you probably know better. But it is ultimately just another little example of, like, when you're sitting there and seeing all this stuff in an extraction shooter, the possibility for a really rich world to be built out like this is so awesome. Yeah. It makes you hope that they continue to add a ton of new maps and new experiences for stuff like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the fungus. I have been talking about the fungus like a lunatic for months now. I 100% think that the fauna, the fungi, there is something larger going on with the natural life on Tau Ceti as well that we're going to get more info on. And one of the I don't know if you're familiar with this, but Robert McLeese, who is the guy behind a lot of the stuff about the I'm drawing a blank, the flood from Halo, had originally pitched a concept for Marathon 2 that there was going to be a fungal virus kind of thing. I forget if it was developed by the Sphit or something, but it kind of turned the 4 into these zombie creatures. But, so you can see the parallel that obviously evolved into the flood that we got in Halo. But he did help write I'm not sure about this newest ARG stuff, but he was involved in writing the ARG stuff from 2023 as well. And then the prominence of some of this floral and, like I said, just natural stuff and how that could impact it is definitely going to be a big deal later on. And where you're saying the narrative could go, it is really cool. A lot of the opportunities for them to expand on, and I think that's kind of just a mirror to how the Marathon community has existed for the past 30 years. We got these 3 canonical games, and then Greg Kirkpatrick, the original writer of the Marathon games, he kind of went over to Double Aught, and they were going to do something, and that project never got off the ground. And we got like a very like low profile AMA from him with a handful of questions, like maybe 7, 8, 10 years ago or something. But there's really not like a huge amount of stuff out about Marathon. It just, it's 3 games. Not that it isn't huge. I mean, obviously there's a lot to dig into, but it just goes to show you like how expansive the universe is, that people can still talk about it today in the way that people were even doing 3 years ago before any of the new stuff was out. And they have a lot of room to expand into. And I think, like, if I had to speculate and guess, I would say that that's what they're going to do, is like really build the kind of upfront story about, let's identify like what is different from what we know about Marathon. Like maybe that's the big story of the first season or first 2 seasons or something. It's like, let's figure out what the difference is, because something different happened here. Like obviously all the events we saw in the original game probably aren't canonical, like one for one, and that they weren't canon to each other even. So like, let's figure out what is the big difference in terms of what's occurring, and then they're going to get into like, all right, let's see how everything shakes out when we introduce all these other characters and factions and entities and different stuff from around this big universe.
Absolutely. This is kind of the joy of something like this. It is the joy of finding something new, right? You have the ability to sit there and experience a universe that, in the case of many people who have not played the original 3 games, is just completely bespoke to them. But you also have something that has really old bones, in the case of something that we have played, that now is getting a fresh coat of paint, and they have the ability, as you say, to explore in any direction. I do actually want to go ahead and ask about this as well, because it is something that we see in the cinematic. It just passed by on the screen for your stream that you're showing off. There are these moments in the trailer, very briefly, where we see that kind of temporal anomaly. And the guy just kind of, blooms, I think is the word I'm going to go with here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got to bring this up here just as a little aside, because it's very freaky for starters, but also it's starting to remind me of the very beginning of Marathon Infinity and whatnot. I don't want to go full crazy Working Carpenter is here conspiracy on this, because I definitely think that it's one of those moments where we don't know a lot, and there are many things that could have done something like this. The line that sticks in my brain, at very least, is that it was as though the universe had forgotten the rules by which it operated. That's the line I think that for Admiral Thea uses when describing the effects of the Working Carpenter. And you know what? Let's actually just start there fully and explain what that is. To sum it up really quickly, Working Carpenter is an eldritch god. And it's kind of like this ultimate boss of Marathon Infinity that you're constantly working to fight, but never actually physically fight. Right? Like, it just eats timelines and whatnot if you're not careful. Maybe not literally, maybe literally. It very much looks as though this is the universe as this man is blooming and exploding, but not really exploding. It looks like the universe is suddenly forgetting the laws upon which it's based as he starts floating, as he goes into this strange, translucent energy field. Do you have any other idea of what this might be? Because my brain immediately goes to, oh, that's the scary, big possibility. It's a very weird thing from the trailer, but I actually did want to go ahead and pick your brains on it anyway, because who knows? There may be other things that I'm missing. I wanted to pick your brains on it.
Yeah, I think the Working Character obviously is kind of the most abstract, like you said, like Lovecraftian concept from the original game. So obviously when we're seeing something that is this absurd and like befuddling and really doesn't align with any of the technology that we know about from the 4 or humanity, I absolutely think it's a fair kind of route to go down. Now, it is kind of described in like Marathon Infinity as being like this. It's almost like this entity of entropy, right? It's just like making things kind of ultimately chaotic, and it kind of seems instantaneous. And like even their escape in a solar system seems to destroy everything that orbits it in a fairly short amount of time. Like a handful of minutes, it seems. And so this is definitely something they could be capable of, but I almost just I view like that concept of the Working Character as something that's more destructive almost. Like if they were unleashed, it would be like a planet is turned into this this bloom effect almost. But yeah, maybe we're getting pieces of them, or this is a interpretation of them, and they're kind of creating this effect where in an instant, or in a moment, this area or a line or a point in space can become instantly chaotic, where every single atom in existence in this area is like disrupted, to some sort of degree that causes this unfathomable goo situation for a human. And also, it's like this doesn't really look like a runner, right? But it is kind of exploding into these very strange colors. Now, maybe that's a thing where it's like they just didn't want it to be incredibly gory or something. But also, if it's an interpretation where it's like literally this is what it looks like, it's like even changing what you would expect the interior of someone's body to look like. So definitely could be that. My first thinking is that it's like some sort of advanced teleportation technology that is either disrupted or incorrect, and it's creating these kind of fields that end up existing in locations that they shouldn't be, like kind of this classic sci-fi trope. It's like, well, the top half of my body got teleported onto the ship and the bottom half of my body is, on Venus or something, crazy. And their appearance over the Dire Marsh map as well, it kind of is underneath, makes me think that maybe it is tied to some sort of technological malfunction. Maybe potentially when Durandal got access to this upgraded teleportation technology from the 4, maybe in this reality it didn't operate as well, and it kind of created these slices in reality where this all the matter in that area is existing in multiple places at once or something.
This is the joy of seeing a trailer like this, though, too, because we genuinely have no clue at this point in time, but it's just the possibilities for speculation run wild. It's one of the things that I absolutely adore about any new universe that I get to jump into, is just the ability to sit there and ask questions that don't necessarily have answers yet. And that's a really cool thing, even just in little moments like this in the trailer for Marathon. The one thing I am going to go ahead and say is, if it is a working Kakanta type situation, which again is immediately a jump because it's the most extreme possibility that absolutely would have far bigger consequences. It's just very interesting to me that this is a bridge over what looks like a chasm or perhaps a crater. And, if you remember Pathways into Darkness, there is an asteroid crater in which one of the working Kakanta is slumbering, and strange things happen around that crater. It's not always the case that people bloom into colors like this, but it is also very much the case of horrifying, terrifying things happen. So, that's another crazy possibility for all the nonsense that could have been going down. But again, totally unconfirmed. A working Kakanta on Tau Ceti would be that would be a terrifying twist. But also nothing confirming it.
That could also, the kind of the big thing from the thing that points people towards the Yarrow being at Tau Ceti is in the original Marathon games, there were hidden messages, on the maps. Right? And so we get one of those hidden messages said, Yarrow, we're at Tau Ceti. And we know that, like in Pathways, the reason why the Yarrow sent a hologram of an ambassador to Earth is because the working Kakanta were there. So it really, if they wanted to canonize, like, okay, why would the Yarrow be on Tau Ceti? Like, well, we could say, it's like a super Earth planet. Maybe they're looking for habitable places. Maybe they have similar biological structure. Maybe, there's a lot of reasons they could go there. But the reason that we have, like, we can point at and say, well, we know they have showed up is, because working Kakanta are there. In Lahuan's star system, they were there. The working Kakanta were there. That's how they got trapped in the sun. On Earth, they were there because a sleeping working Kakanta god was there. So if they do want to introduce the idea of the Yarrow being here, that would absolutely be a great explanation as to why they had some kind of presence there, in the past.
Absolutely. Wow. I mean, we've been recording now for about an hour or so. I don't know if there's any other questions on the flip side of things, but I'm very glad to have had the opportunity to sit down with you, Jake, and just, for starters, probe your brains, because whilst I know a modicum of stuff about Marathon, I think it's fair to say that you have basically claimed the title, rightly so, as the preeminent Marathon lore master. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to think about.
Well, I believe I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. I think what people have very kindly called me is, oh, he's the Bife of Marathon, so I appreciate you. Some people have said so. It's a nice compliment.
I appreciate that, but if there's gonna be anything else as well, I would say that both of us really also owe it to the like. There's a bunch of OGs.
Yeah.
Is it Hamish Sinclair?
Hamish
I
Sinclair
believe, who
running the
created.
marathon story page, Carnimir's Lore Archive, Joku on
Yep.
YouTube, who does like the most in-depth Marathon 1 breakdowns. Obviously, Mandalore and Hidden Xperia stuff is really great. There's a ton of like
Yep.
smaller videos out just kind of diving into Finrick as well on YouTube is another one who's done some really great stuff. Ghost Virus. Sorry, I'm just trying to think of all the other. Yeah, there's a ton of people. And for, like I said, for 30 years, people on forums who aren't named. Tree Llama as well, the guy who was in the first ever Marathon online game. He did a lot of work on the LF1 project. You know, what's his name?
Collectively, we all stand on the shoulders of these giants, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Tons of amazing people.
Yeah, and even the people who are more recent to this community, like, I mean, I say recent to this community, before the reveal even happened, the Mandalore videos on Pathways and Marathon came out, but I think it's fair to say that, like, you know, some of these moments were the introduction for a lot of people to just sit there and, like, gain the big insights that they wanted or needed into the universe. You know, like, that would have been a lot of people's start points for it. It's so cool just to sit there and see all of this.
Yeah. And it really speaks to
yeah.
how amazing Jason Jones and Greg Kirkpatrick's and Alexander Seropian and Doug Zartman and Robert McLeese, like all these people who worked on this project, they really did have something special that, you know, it could still exist in this capacity for so long and affect so many people.
Absolutely. Going back to the original question, is there anything else that you wanted to go ahead and bring up before we potentially bring any recording to a close? Because I feel like I've potentially missed something, but I don't know that for certain.
I think,
and if not, I mean, that's okay.
I think the other thing that I would want to just touch on briefly is that in this ARG, kind of one of the recurring things across the Escape Will Make Me God website or escapewillmake.me website, the in the Discord, the stuff we're seeing potentially from Durandal or whatever rampant AI is, we keep getting the and also in the cinematic trailer, we keep getting the Ozymandias poem, which, you know, I'm not a I'm not literary analyst, I'm not like super trained or anything, but my understanding, you know, my brief understanding of the poem is like this kind of concept that this king or something, or, you know, this ruler had this, you know, statue or monument built to how great they are, but it was kind of their hubris that ultimately led to the destruction of their kingdom, and the only thing that's left is this, you know, wretched, terrible structure. And after everything's destroyed in this dystopian environment, and even here in the trailer, we're kind of getting the shot where there's some sort of buried statue a la original Planet of the Apes, like, you blew it all up, you know, kind of thing. I do think that that's very intentional in terms of kind of making a lot of different statements about a lot of different elements within the narrative as we'll see it. I think that could be a metaphor for the UESC and how their hubris of wanting to control people has ultimately led to this destruction, because they didn't care about people, they cared about power and expansion. Or maybe what we're looking at here is the hubris of corporations and how they're putting profits above lives and you know, in that regard. Or maybe we're looking at the hubris of Durandal, who thought that he could you know, escape the confines, and he didn't take into consideration that while he views himself as this sentient being, that all of these other people that he impacted with his decisions were also sentient beings. And that's what's left in the wake of this destruction from all of these entities operating within one space is, you know, this, you know, a dystopian futuristic world where people are slaves to corporations and trying to get enough money so that they can get put into a biomata shell. And obviously, like, humanity has suffered a great loss here, and there's a bunch of alien races that are also going through some very difficult times related to that. So I just think, as a touching point, the Ozymandias poem and the potential implications of what they're saying about all of the entities within this game and the broader universe is going to be like a recurrent thing that we could probably come back to and point out, like, okay, that's probably a good understanding of why things are playing out the way that they are.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I mean, yeah, there are very few characters within the universe of Marathon that don't touch on hubris. I mean, you mentioned the UESC and Durandal, but like the Four and Admiral Fear, for example, is another great one with you know, the events at the end of Marathon 2 and everything that then follows up immediately after that. And then even just looking at characters like Tycho, who had the hubris of believing that they could best Durandal. You know, despite the fact that he easily lays traps for Tycho on a semi-regular basis throughout different timelines. It's just, it's now that you bring it up, it's actually kind of brilliant because this is absolutely everyone within the Marathon universe, with the exception of like a few small protagonist characters. And I don't mean protagonist in just purely they're from our perspective. I also mean that in the sense of like, you know, if you looked at the main character of the Marathon games, it is arguably Durandal, but he still falls into this trap all the time. And meanwhile, I'd say that it's maybe only, you know, the security officer, maybe Bobby Blake, maybe the Svit, who don't actually fall into this sort of category, and they're suffering at the hands of all those beings who do fall for that trap of hubris. Which is it's kind of amazing. Like, I'm so glad you brought that up. Thematically, it's absolutely a brilliant through line.
Yeah. And also, I'm obviously getting this spam in the chat. I have to mention it to you so that you continue to utilize it in your analysis of Marathon lore. Obviously, the blue fork is the most relevant piece of canonical information we have. And I'm sure all of this ties back to that as well.
Oh, yeah, 100%. What is the blue fork?
The blue fork. Oh, shit. Okay. All right. Listen, the blue fork. Go. This is the... Okay, we waited for over a year. And what was the first thing that we got from Bungie about Marathon after all this waiting and us being, you know, crazy here thinking about it? We got a runner helmet for the Festival of the Lost, which featured a glorious blue fork on the side of it. And I think that's about it. and because that was the one thing we got, we put a lot of stock into it. And now we're a blue fork cult, and here we are. So if you see any blue fork connections, just know it has deeper meaning. Fork is the path forward. Thank you, Michael.
I mean, look, listen, they put it on the side of that rover that you've got pulled up in the moment in this trailer. So, like, you know, I had to sit there and ask, is it a deeper connection? Can we go deeper? Like,
well, the color of the rover is also the same color of the fork. So, you know, just waiting to be analyzed, I think.
You see, I don't know how this is the case, but it is all connected. And when I find out, I'm going to blow the doors off this thing.
That's the Bife quote we need. And now we're going to have you like in front of a, you know, the red yarn board with a blue fork in the middle.
The Pepe Silvia board? Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Nah, oh God, those memes literally exist. Just don't let me encourage your community. They'll do that for you as well with the blue fork.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Jake, it's been absolutely fantastic. I hope we get to make more marathon content talking about lore and things in the future, because honestly, it's been such a pleasure sitting down and talking to you. And I hope that more people go ahead and check out your content, because again, I think, for what it is worth, it is currently the most in-depth and detailed breakdown of what I'm going to call contemporary marathon, as in the stuff from 2023 and now 2025 and everything that has come along with the new game. Like, it's the best breakdowns that you can get on YouTube, and it's the most detailed. And I really was keen to go ahead and jump in and do content with you in particular, because I don't think I found someone who has made better dedicated content to it. So If you are listening to this and you're on my side of things, Jake the All Right on YouTube, the link is going to be in the description. Go ahead and hit a subscribe if you're at all interested in marathon lore. But thank you so much for taking the time to sit down.
Dude, thank you. I truly appreciate it. And obviously, you know, huge fan of your videos. And I've been getting into Destiny over the past few months, and I have my lovely Sherpa Ace Traveler in the chat, and we're running Vow the Disciple tomorrow for the first time. And so you've been a big help trying to understand everything.
For the first time?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh man. Oh God. I need to sit there and you doing Vow for the first time is so exciting, purely because Vow is okay. What? I will not spoil you, but environmental storytelling in that raid is the best in the entire game. Dude. Like, it's just phenomenal.
Awesome.
Keep looking for stuff. You'll find more cool things.
Awesome.
I will leave it at that. I don't want to spoil any of it for you. But yeah, dude, it's been fantastic, and onwards to more marathon things as time goes on. I guess I shall see you in the closed alpha.
Absolutely, dude. I'll see you later. Thank you so much for doing this again.
Absolutely.
Bye.
As a quick FYI, I will throw in my own outro at the very end, independent of all this, but I will leave you to your stream. Thank you so much for having me. Adios.
Thank you so much, dude. Have a good one.
You too.
Holy shit. Dude, what a cool fucking guy. What a cool dude, man. What a cool dude. I apologize to everybody. I'm sorry. I wanted to like chat with him and have my attention there. I was seeing all the fork memes. I gotta go through everything. I saw Rage send a dono I totally missed, bro. Wait, hold on. Let me just scroll this. I'm trying to see it. I don't know why it's not popping up here. Hold on. Rage, I appreciate you, dude. Seriously, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Hold on. Let me go back. Let me just collect my thoughts. I'm having a moment right now. I don't even know where I can see this right now. Okay, here we go. Try this again because the last super chat was canceled, but all I wanted to say was, Jake, you're the true sneaky weaky. Oh, so glad and proud of this community conjured up. I love you all, guys. Bro, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. Dudes. Holy shit. Very cool. Very cool. What a good guy. I really appreciate Life coming on, and do we embarrass you? No, Ace, not at all. Life is a real one, for sure. And I'm sure you guys can tell I was cheesing the whole time. So excited that I got to have that chat. Joku, how's it going? Not memes anymore. Listen, Fork is official. The Fork is here. Also join the mission. Thank you, Yap Yap. I appreciate that, dude. Sorry, I don't know where my notifications and everything are. Today's been a ridiculous mess. And yeah, at the beginning of the stream, the first thing I did was like trip into the back end of my computer and fuck my camera up. So, and I was sweating. I was like, oh, I'm trying to get, I was editing this video, trying to get this out for the last however long. So that's like 30 hours basically. I missed him. Yeah, he just left, but had a really good chat. Really good chat. And Ace, thank you for my Valve tomorrow. Pumped for that. Can't wait for official Fork merch to hit the Bungie store. Hell yeah. So, okay, yeah, so Jake does a game. How does it feel? Yeah, okay, so if anybody, guys, so at 4:30, Lars Backan, who's senior direct, hold on, let me make sure I say his title correctly here. Let's see here. Oh my god, guys, shit's just crazy right now. Okay, here we go. He's a senior design lead on Marathon. That is his title, Lars Backan. He has, been at Bungie for a long time. He worked on Halo 3 was his first project, so a lot of cool stuff. He's going to come on at 4:30, so an hour from now. I'll be chatting with him. He's very, very kindly going to come do an interview over here. And then until then, I'm going to kind of like go through some of these trailers, look at some of this stuff. I was having a little bit of audio issues earlier. I'm sorry, guys. Like I said, it's just been a crazy, hectic past few days. So I don't know. Let me just see here. Yeah, I'm getting like a lot of feedback. You know what I think I can do, though? Actually, what I think that this might be. Because I don't think you guys are getting that feedback right there, potentially. Hold on. But, sorry, while I fix this stuff, while I pull this up real quick, if you guys want to ask me any questions about Marathon, like I said, I played a pre-alpha version of the game. All right, let me see if this sounds any better. It sounds very strange to me. Okay. I'm going to have to fix that before tomorrow. This cinematic is mind-blowing. I had not seen any of that. But yeah, definitely drop your question in the chat right now if you want to know anything about Marathon. I played a pre-alpha version of the game via remote playtest earlier this year. Very cool. Balance said, how does the game feel? Very, very good. It's more grounded than like an Apex. But also very quick, classic Bungie shooter feel. I would say like a faster version of Destiny. A lot of weight to the heavier characters. There's like a big, difference between each of the individual runners in the way that they feel. Sorry, I'm trying to join you and have Bife as a cherry on top. I know, bro. Awesome. 4:30. Oh yeah, for me currently. Okay, so it's 3:50 right now. So in 40 minutes, we're gonna be doing the interview with Lars Backan. Yeah, Eastern Standard. Thank you. Runners have memory issues. Yeah, Julian. And in the gameplay overview, the slightly longer one that came after the reveal trailer, they even said you've given up, you've shed or something. Hold on. I'll tell you guys what it actually says right here of this. Little thing, right? Marathon team-based strategy set around the mysterious cut-through world tells you you're a runner, a cybernetic mercenary who has given up their human form for a biosynthetic shell. Like I said, I think that's a huge deal. Sorry, I'm like dragging my shit around, going crazy. Because like I said, we're not coming from a human body anymore and connecting to a runner. We just like are a free-floating intelligence that's being plopped into the biomata. Someone that loves Hunt, how do you think it'll translate? Hunt is way slower, way more realistic in terms of like how the damage and stuff is. You have shields, they can go up to 4 chunks, and then like a standardized health bar. Also, you have like mods and implants and stuff like this that change some of the stuff around how your runner works. Like I forget what it's called. And they said on the stream, the implants I think change like some of your base abilities. So like if you have the double jump stat or like a stealth ability or something like that, that'll change those. And then if you look at that, it's like giving me a little like hiccups as well. Hold on, guys. But yeah, so that changes that. You had a very important question and you DM'd me. All right, fist fight. I'll check it out. How did Extraction feel if you ever made it out? I did make it out. I mean, the playtest I was involved with did not have that many people in it, so like there obviously will be way different in this next playtest. All right, I'm gonna check fist fight. I'll see what you said. Boop, 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 boop. Why does the RoboCat have a butthole? Probably for pooping. That's gonna be my guess. But yeah, so the way the extraction zone works is you hit the thing. It's a teleportation thing. It's very cool, and it shoots that beam of light, so people can know we're trying to extract that. And you have to wait like around a minute, I think, and then if you go into the, I don't know why my stuff's not playing. I'm sorry, Rage. Oh, there we go. Boom. One more super chat for the day. Tell Lars about the Red Spoon has been supporting this team's light bill since Halo CE through Destiny 2 The Final Shave. Dude, I'm so amazed and happy for you how far you've come. Chat type Red Spoon. All right, let's get some Red Spoons in chat for Rage. Rage, I seriously appreciate it, dude. You've been so supportive for such a long time. It's always been a pleasure hanging out with you, man. Thank you. I guess now I have to give him the blasphemy of the Red Spoon. Bit confused by the visuals, but I gotta ask: is it a toon shader or realistic, faster lighting? Okay, so the build that I played didn't have all of the like all of the textures weren't finished on it. So like my understanding of how it's gonna look afterwards, there's like obviously that's a huge caveat. Blue Fork thing. Blue Fork, Jesus Christ, I'm losing my mind. So there might be some visual disparity between what we see, like obviously in this trailer, and what I personally played. I do think the trailer looked a little significantly a bit different from what I played, but in game it was very striking, bright colors, hard edges, like same design patterns. It to me felt very in line with the original stuff that we saw. Once again, though, like for my art video, relied very heavily on Michael because I'm not a professional art person. You know, I'm just a layman who thinks stuff looks cool. I do think it's pretty consistent, but there is a lot of visual variety and a lot of kind of rundown natural areas as well. Some of the guns look like they barely have any recoil. Is that so? Yeah. So the gun system is very cool because you can add in different elements, different like pieces to kind of everything, and that increases the rare. So like if you have like a gray gun, you can put enough attachments on it so it becomes a green gun, and then you can collect even more attachment and it becomes a blue gun. They also had this thing called like the vintage system where some items that you got, if you carried them through raids and then extracted with them, they would be more valuable when you got them, like when you left the raid with them. But like I said, they said that I'm free to talk about everything. There are like one or two narrative things that I'm going to personally hold back on until I see what everyone else says because, you know, guys, I think I'm in like a little bit of a weird position as somebody who's kind of like psychotically thought about this game, read into every little thing. So there may have been some stuff that, like the majority of people who did the playtest were Hunt streamers or Tarkov streamers or Apex people, you know, stuff like this. Not that they're like, you know, Scaro was involved with it, Bon was in it as well, and Joku and stuff. But so like there weren't like a lot of people who were as ingrained in the narrative stuff from this. So there's some stuff that I kind of saw that made me think some things, but could have been placeholder. I'm gonna wait, you know, just to see kind of like what the hidden Xperia type people and the Rilo and stuff type people say before I get into some of that. Losing his forks over the red spoon. No, the fork always lives. Can't kill that which was never truly alive. It merely existed. How are the boss fights mixed with PvP? Okay, so the boss enemies are very cool. In the build that I played, there was like an extraction mechanic tied to them. So if you wanted to take like an alternate extraction point out, you could go to these kind of like UESC controlled locations that had an extra like hard boss enemy there. I'm trying to like the AI enemy are, I would say, like in between Forever Winter and Tarkov. I don't know. It's weird to say. Like they're not pushed. Like okay, in Hunt, right? The thing that I like about Hunt is that each enemy is a puzzle and they have their own solution. But the caveat to that is like it makes those encounters really easy once you know the solution. So like it's not like that where it's like there's a solution to each of these enemy types, and once you see them, you pop that fusey on them or whatever, and they're gone. They definitely pack a punch, and they have to be dealt with in kind of like a strategic way. But at no point did I ever feel like they were overwhelming or like inhibitive to the experience. But obviously that's something that's going to be tweaked as they get closer to launch. Okay, I'm just going to update the title here real quick. Yeah. Lars Backan, 4:30 p.m. EST. Boom. Take the BIF tag out right there. Okay, save. That should be updated. Hold on, guys. Let me click over here. All right, let me see the chat with this and that. Okay. What about White Rabbit? Okay, so White Rabbit wasn't in the build that I played. They did say that there were going to be 6, right? Runners during this thing that they did. So what? So Thief is the other one. My guess would be that White Rabbit might be one of them. Oh, BIF is a runner. Thank you so much, dude. I appreciate it. Okay, I don't know why it keeps pausing that. Thank you so much, dude. I appreciate the support, man. So, but we did see in the cinematic trailer, hold on, here towards the end, another runner, right? That doesn't look like White Rabbit. I think White Rabbit's going to be in the game. That's what I'm going to say. But I didn't see White Rabbit or play White Rabbit. Let me see here. But yeah, it was right before they showed up, yeah? Before they got into the fight here. Dude, there's so much stuff. And like I said, guys, I had never seen this, so... There's so much stuff with this that is ridiculously mind-blowing. We're going to jump on in and send some love. Enjoy the rest of the interview time. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. Hold on, let me see here. Display. Oh, wait, no, he's already gotten shot here. Da-da-da. We already see him? No. They run after. Run, get it? Did you get priority access? Does this now take place in 2894? It takes place in, yeah, sorry, I'm trying to, yeah, it's 2894, 2893. I forget what the thing is. This guy right here, I've never seen this guy. I never saw Thief in game either. But I think White Rabbit's gotta come back, right? There's so much good stuff on her. Haven't signed up yet? Okay. Not from NA. So it does say that you can sign up. I guess they're just prioritizing people in NA to stress test the servers. Marathon Decial, thank you for all your work. Absolutely, Coden. BIF has always had a profound impact on people's enjoyment of narrative Destiny. Super cool, man. Crazy good videos. That girl on the right at the end. Are you talking about this one right here or at the very, very end? Because we have thief and stealth here. I also think it's interesting to point out that like I didn't realize like her legs are like more like hinges. Other thing is like, okay, so in the build I played, it was only UESC enemies. I believe that's what I said in my trailer breakdown, but I guess technically that's not true because of the ticks. I just kind of viewed them more as like environmental hazards as opposed to enemies. They kind of like run at you and then explode, and you just got to destroy the Chief Innocence's Void at the end. Nice, yeah. They kind of run at you and you have to destroy their nest so they stop spawning. So I guess technically that is the other enemy, but I don't understand fully like what's going on with the UESC enemies. Like, are those like lower caliber runners like mass produced for military? Are those just purely like robots? It seems like they would be runners as well, like, you know, soldiers put inside those bodies, but I don't know. Priority code, seem not to care where you're from. Gotcha. We're on Jake's Discord, so I assumed. Michael does create a lot of stuff. He just doesn't post on videos. He does help Jake with some of it. Yeah, he edits, and Michael's being modest. Michael does a lot of stuff for the whole community. A lot of art and thumbnails and all sorts of stuff. Michael's the best. Something I didn't like about the gameplay is that biomatas disintegrate after being killed. I prefer to find the bodies around, maybe even older bodies being eaten by nature. I do think that someone had given them feedback. Actually, here, let me pull up the gameplay. Maybe this would be a good one to kind of have cooking in the background. Is the video doing something? I know the audio is kind of being a little funky for me, but is the video doing something weird too? No. So yeah, that was feedback that some people gave because they want to be able to like understand like how many players are on the map, or be able to you know, have an idea of like how stuff played out when you show up to a location. What I will say is that like I think canonically it might fit in that like whoever paid for you to go planetside is, you know, trying to reclaim a little bit of their assets to keep making biomata. But you do leave bags, like your kit is like in a bag on the ground. Is ammo management a thing? Are there different ammo types? Is it part of the loot pool? Yeah, okay, so ammo management is a thing, but it's not like Tarkov where you store the ammo in your bag. You have like a separate ammo pool that you pick up. So the ammo is entirely separate. You don't have to worry about like creating bag space for it. Maybe that would be a good right here kind of example. I can kind of talk through what's popping up here. But yeah, you don't got to worry about the ammo management stuff. Hold on, let me see if this drops down during his little thing here. Okay. So yeah, so you got these are your weapons, and then these are your upgrade slots. You know, like barrel, sight, mag, and then grip or something's like the other one, I think. Your equipment, so that's where you get like your kind of toxic or caustic kind of grenades, hand grenades. There's a few different types. This is your shield kit here, and these are your cores. The cores are the things that change your kind of like base abilities and how they operate. Like I said, or they said on the stream, I think like your double jump becomes a triple jump. Your other like your passive abilities kind of. And then the implants are like leg, hands, chest maybe. And they kind of give additional bonuses to like your speed or your reload speed and stuff like that. John Martin, Fanny, the love of my life. John, okay, did you see John Marathon in the gameplay overview trailer is in there? What bonuses do we get for choosing a faction? Okay, so in the build that I played, this is the way that the faction system works. Okay, here, wait, hold on. It just kind of like popped up here for a second. Sorry, I'm doing this like in the slowest, lamest way possible. Let me see here. So the way that the factions work, because you just see the screen here for just a second right there. Okay, runner loadout faction. So when you click the factions button, it comes up to like this contracts screen, right, where you can pick what contracts you want to load into. You don't have to align to any faction. Rather, you can take jobs from any faction and build up your reputation with them. Now, building up your reputation with them will open up new materials in the black market, different upgrade tree paths, stuff like that. But yeah, so if you do choose to like, okay, let's say like, you know, New Caloric or Mida has a lot more upgrade tree stuff that you would like. Or maybe it's like, oh, I want to focus on my time to kill ability, stuff like that. You can choose to exclusively create like, or exclusively take on Mida contracts, and then that'll give you more access to their upgrade path as you get a higher level with them. So it's like it's an experience thing. Like each contract will give you a certain amount of experience in with that faction. Is there junk loot? Yeah, there is junk loot, but it's like automatically sold upon leaving the raid. So like you don't have to like manage it or anything. But yeah, it's just like gray items. Funny if you get junk loot, like a rubber boot. Yeah, it is. Yeah, there's stuff like, you know, but they're just like, you know, computer parts or like, you know, what do people always go through construction sites for? Like copper wire type shit. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast, fast is cool. Julian knows. How's it going? The UI screen is super simple and clean. Yeah, absolutely. How's it going, Marathon Intel? Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think that it solves a lot of the problems that come with extraction games in very cool ways. And like I said, the gameplay is deep enough to keep people in who are very invested and experienced, and also simple enough to allow like people who aren't super familiar with extraction games and stuff like that to have an opportunity to play. Yeah, the UI is great. Yeah, very clean. So no actual player market. There was not a player market in the build that I played. No, just kind of like a, you know, black market AI store kind of thing. Is UESC a faction you can get contracts from, or are they only PvE enemies? So, like I said, open to change. In the build that I played, it was just the enemies. Like the UESC are not aligned with the runners. So kind of like your position as a runner, it seems, is kind of antithetical to being aligned with the USC, because the USC doesn't think you should be there as a runner at all. So it doesn't seem like they're employing any runners. So yeah, they were only enemies in the one that I played. And there was Cyber Acme, New Caloric, Mida, Traxxas, Sekaguchi, and there was also another faction that was referenced and kind of in there. That's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I can say, because there might be some other stuff, and I got a very vague answer about it, so I'm just gonna wait to see what everyone else says. Cinematic was so good. I know. How's it going, Castaway? Really, really good. I was blown away. I'd never seen that cinematic. Copperwire sought after commodity in Stalcraft. Nice. Skins, full body or partial? Okay, let's talk about the cosmetics thing, because I feel like a lot of people now, and I've actually seen some of this conversation going on with creators and stuff like this, a lot of, like, I'm sure a lot of you guys here have been following the game for a longer amount of time, and so you know that over the past year, one of the like major points of discussion was about the hero shooter stuff, and I want to be customizable and stuff. It seems like people don't even remember that as something that people were like kind of tuned in for or hoping for or anything. But yeah, there is no like visual customization at this point. I don't know. So during the trailer, we kind of saw like some alternate skins for Glitch, right, in the cinematic trailer. I do think they're going to add in cosmetic stuff like that, but the only thing that changes your appearance right now is the backpacks and the weapons you carry. Like a different weapon that you're holding are a different backpack, or at least, you know, in the build I played. Could be different in the alpha. Those are the only thing. I do know that like some feedback that was given was about how the shields should like have some sort of visual representation, because like if you're going to choose whether or not to engage with someone, like in Tarkov, you can look and you can say, okay, that guy's kitted up, like maybe I'm not going to fuck with him, but you know, like if you saw him, it's like, all right, this guy looks like, you know, a dork, like you can kind of jump in there. Sorry guys, I'm just reading something. All right. Sorry. Just getting some cool DMs right now. Hold on. All right. Just got to make sure I got this pulled up. Reading this to you guys. That's cool. All right. Cool. All right. So in a few minutes, I'm going to join that, and then we should be good. Okay. Dust in the wind. It's Arachne. Okay, thank you. So someone else said it. I didn't say it, someone else said it. Yeah, there is another faction, Arachne, that wasn't like I wasn't able to like access their faction stuff, but yeah, it was in there. New contender entered the chat. Who's that? I hope there's some type of skill-based matchmaking so you wouldn't load in with total pros. Yeah, I'm gonna be interested. You know, Lars Backan is the sorry, I keep drawing a blank on the name, but it's very related. He's the senior design lead, so he's designing the game Marathon. I believe in the panel he was talking about how kind of talking about maps and contracts and systems like that. So definitely one of the questions I'm going to have for him is going to be about how does seasonal progression work? Are we going to have these people who are like kitted up to the max at the end of a season and like we're all just getting stomped on, you know? Obviously, Tarkov kind of has a situation where the gameplay experience is very different, seemingly, in the beginning of the wipe versus the end of the wipe. How are they going to kind of approach that? And we try to avoid some of the issues with that. So if the marathon we saw on the CGI trailer is real, what is the colorful popsicle from the first trailer? Let's check it out. Let's check it out. Are you talking about in the gameplay reveal trailer? This right here? I think that's the marathon. I just think, yeah, that was like a cinematic trailer. But obviously kind of features a little bit of that UESC blue tinge. Although what I will say is, damn, do I love the fucking cinematic trailer's interpretation of the marathon. Fucking good. Please no full body skins. I'm totally fine with head, body, legs, but please not full body. So you'd rather have like separate stuff? Yeah, I don't know anything. Like there weren't skins in the game, you know, at the time. There is going to be like some sort of like seasonal pass, kind of like what they do in Destiny, or an iteration of that was in the version that I played. That was very cool because it was a separate little like upgrade trail for you to go through. That's a total turn off for me if it stays that way. Are you talking about the USC, the marathon? Yeah, well, also, there is some sort of like visual disruption going on. I talked about this in my breakdown that I just uploaded a little bit, but obviously you guys have been here on the stream. But there's something going on with this planet. My thinking is that it's Argolis, which was referenced as like a separate kind of colonization target if they have to go the nuke and pave route on Tau Ceti 4 in the original ARG materials. And it does seem like there's some sort of oily magnetic disruption. It might be tied to these kind of like anomalies that we see make that guy explode. All right, let me see here. All right, guys. Got a lot of different stuff going on. All right. DM for Marton. Oh no. Did I get a Marton DM? Cool DM. Thank you, Marton. Appreciate you, dude. Thank you. Labbit. Hope this wasn't the first and last cinematic. I agree. The Rilo video just went live. Nice, nice. I know he was working hard. We got the materials like pretty shortly before today, so sure it was crazy. Jake, these are the complaints I gathered from the community. Bland, janky animation, small buildings, the colors are bland. Could use a little realism like the cinematic. Okay. I do think it was kind of like a bummer to see in one frame of the trailer, like this trailer, Glitch's hands like a little cattywampus. I'm like, man, why did you feature that? You know, like obviously, oh yeah, it's right there. Obviously, there's gonna be like animation issues in multiplayer first-person shooters. Like that's something that just is gonna happen in some capacity. Things will clip a little bit. Like I think that's generally expected, but yeah, to include it in the trailer, I think that's a little bit of a miss for sure. Oh damn, though the twirl. It's not as like saturated, I think maybe is the right word. Michael, you can help me out if if you have a better way to describe it, it's as compared to like the original stuff that we got. Definitely like the design language is like very consistent. I think it's just some of the color stuff. But then again, like I said, the build I played was not finished. And I felt like everything in this trailer looked a lot more bright and kind of popped more than the build I played. Love Alberto Amiego's work, especially Love Death Robots. Yeah. Super sick. Dude, that's crazy. Dude, that drop at the end was like the best thing that we got. Cusbland and the graphic realism. Dude, but how sick has been the art that Joseph Cross been tweeting? Yeah, I mean, definitely in game, there's a little bit of disparity for sure. Cinematic with Void and Glitch, that Marathon looked very different from the first trailer. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I think that was just because all of that is like artistic, stylized stuff because they brought in an outside person to do it. Just hope the self-resing in PvP isn't too annoying. Okay, so self-res is kind of like maybe rare is like the wrong word. Obviously, like, loot pools are going to still be worked on like crazy. Tide, how's it going, dude? But it's like a pretty long period that it takes. So you kind of like, if you get killed, the self-res is either something you're going to use in the team. So like your team's going to take the distraction and give you some covering fire while you pop it. Or like if you're solo, you're kind of fucked because it takes a long time if someone kills you, unless it's like an AI. But the AI do run up and they have those like tentacle things that come out and suck data out of you. He's a whole okay, behind the whole idea of the Spider-Verse Miles movie. Nice. He was fired and his concept simplified. Interesting. That's how the Spider-Verse movie animation should look like. Dude, that would have been crazy. LD plus R episodes. Oh, Love, Death, and Robot episodes he's done still haunt me. Hell yeah. Thought it was interesting that there was such a big time jumps in the cinematic. Like the colony kept going even after the Marathon had a boomy. Really great point, Wozy. Should have brought that up with Bife. There's so much to talk about. But yeah, that is a really good point. Also, like we've never seen anything that kind of showed this period in between 2794 and then the runner operations on Tau Ceti at least. But yeah, definitely seen here. I'm gonna see where that pops up at. But I think it was like 28, 27 maybe or something. So yeah, there definitely was stuff going on, that makes it seem like different stuff. Also, there is some ARG stuff, undefined. Michael, I don't know. Obviously, like I said, you guys haven't seen my video yet. Maybe you guys have already pulled it and people are already working on this. I've been obviously kind of busy with this stuff, but God, the symbols pop up next to the escape will make me God thing in the trailer. Translates to 64B. And then we also get another symbol with the 3 characters at the bottom. Game looks great. It's a bit washed out from the trailers, though. Yeah, definitely slightly, like the coloring is different for sure. It's very fun to play. Ridiculously fun to play. Like I said, I put 60 hours in. Really love the original art direction. I think the art direction is the same. I think the way they did the coloring on some of the stuff is different. But like I said, I don't know. Even in game, it was a little bit different from what I played. Ghosty, how's it going? Really love to see the UESC send a new generation of Battleroids as boss raids or something similar. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff they could expand on. Where do aliens though? There's one of them, right? Yeah, the 4 are not like present. 28, 27. There we go. See, that's where we see that. See, so all this, and look how like dusty that UESC vehicle is. So definitely like something the colony should have. Also seems like the colony was much larger than kind of what we've seen. This is such a cool shot, dude. This is such a cool shot. Also having very vibrant parts, less reflective, more light absorbing. Yeah. I also think that might be like just a contrast between the like very synthetic 3D printed construction aspect of a lot of the stuff we saw in the new trailer, whereas now we're seeing some of the stuff that's been more impacted by the runner operations and time. But I think so far, dude, I'm blown away by everything. And like I said, I mean, my experience with this game was very positive. I do think it'll be a lot different with I do think it'll be a lot different with like more people. Like I don't know if maybe I had a full lobby for like 10 of the hours, maybe 8 of the hours that I played out of the 60 hours I played. So I'm sure that'll be a much different experience as well. Personally think it's being hyper realistic isn't necessarily like some people are saying. Say I love the art. There's a personally think. Well, this is just a separate thing made by somebody, you know, kind of outside of Bungie. So this is just a cinematic thing, not representative of the art like in game, you know. Change from the original design. The first trailer we had the UESC runner getting sniped by White Rabbit. Those runners are nowhere to be seen. Maybe cosmetics for others. I think those runners will come back in one way or another. But I think a lot of the runners that we're seeing now are iterations on a lot of the concept art. I mean, 1-for-1 not White Rabbit, 1-for-1 Glitch and Locust were featured in the concept art. So they've definitely been around for a long time. Same company's vids as well. Might go looking a bit. Nice. Art design to me is way more important than realistic graphics, yeah. Glad there's dynamic weather. Yeah, the weather stuff is very, very cool. And I talk about this in my breakdown video, but there's like these lightning effects that just destroy you. And then set your over your heating cores or whatever. This gentleman has BA. Yep. We've seen that. We've been thinking about that. Let me know if you come with anything. I've played over around 60 hours. Might be a little bit under, might be a little bit over. Gravity shit, yeah. And we see that in the gameplay trailer as well. If you look right at the beginning for a few frames, then towards the middle, we see a peak of it. Should have been more glossy, reflective type vibe, but it's washed. Maybe it's still better during launch. Seems unfinished. 4 should be present in some way if we're seeing this fit, right? Depends. It depends what events are canonical. If the 4 came here in 2794, you know, nuked the colony or did a bunch of fucked up shit and then bounced, maybe we're just seeing leftovers fit. I mean, who's to say that the 4 would leave, you know, like a planet-side contingent of people or not? Or who's to say that whatever is killing, where's this person? The person spraying the fields? Who's to say whatever is killing this person then also have some sort of effect on the 4 as well? Materials are soft touch. Gotcha. How's the performance? It was pretty good. I think like obviously it was a pre-alpha, so I don't even know if my assessment of that, like there was definitely drop frames in some parts, but I had a very smooth, like, you know, I played it for a very long time. It's a smooth experience, but obviously, you know, not finished yet. Seasonal, so we might get new runners and maps during next season for sure. I think that will happen. Live stars receive updates like every month, exactly. Yeah, I'm about to talk to Lars Backan. Yeah, very, very cool. Wish he was my dad. So curious how queuing into the teams or going solo is going to be. Okay, so a really, really awesome thing was the... Hold on, guys. Sorry, I'm trying to come over here. A really awesome thing was the queue system and the pain, not queue system, the pain system. There's a lot of really smooth ways to communicate with people, and you can see everybody else's contracts that they're trying to complete as well. We hear Sebastian. How's it going, dude? Cinematic specifically for people like me. Dude, so good. I really loved it. So each scene takes place at a different date. Missed that the first time, though. Yeah, this whole initial part is like telling like kind of this series of events almost from Tau Ceti is what it looks like. Lars is doing the rounds. Yeah, he's talking to a few other creators, and he's going to talk to me here very shortly. I'm actually going to mute myself in just a moment and then just get that set up. Probably in like 2 minutes. 2 minutes. All right, let me just see. Is it like jumpy as well? It's like I'm kind of like dropping frames. Maybe, like I said, I had to set up a whole new stream setup at the last minute, kind of. But I can't tell because it might be just be the design of this trailer and the cinematic. Jake, how fast is the time to kill? How long do we have till extraction or before the map kills us off? All that stuff super subject to change, or the map timing stuff is subject to change. Time to kill, Like shield pops were probably like, let's think. I'm trying to like put this in like very realistic terms, right? Like very like simple, like a shield pop. Oh, look, that's another good. Like that planet in the background has that warping effect on it. It doesn't seem like the atmosphere. I'd say like the shield pop was probably like 10 to 15 SMG rounds, maybe, you know, somewhere between like 10 to 20 SMG rounds, and then killing someone was like another 10 to 20 rounds. That could be horribly off, but like just how it felt to me, like a shotgun blast. If somebody doesn't have any shields, 2 rounds from the Mizraya probably puts them down, maybe. Wonder why they kept that 6th runner hidden. They were finished enough to be in the gameplay trailer. So why not show them off? It's sus, I tell you, they're sus. In the gameplay trailer, I didn't see the 6th runner in the gameplay trailer. Maybe I missed it, or is it in the gameplay overview? There's definitely the 6th runner in this. I think this is what the skins are like, guys. By the way, this scene right here. I think they'll be like kind of just big, full body differences. That's my guess. So I think Cinemac's supposed to be like that, yeah. Yeah, the cinematic is not obviously representative at all of what the game looks like visually. I mean, obviously, not at all, but, you know, clearly very different. Disintegration scene reminds me of Metro, the mimics from Prey. Oh, Meadow, the mimics from Prey. Ooh. Which makes Marathon unique to other extraction shooters. Well, I'm going to talk to the senior design lead on Marathon here in a second. Maybe he'll have some insight on that. Be able to create clans, kind of like how Apex has it. That wasn't in the version I played, but like I said, a lot of changes will come from that. Should lock down Alberto's schedule for the next 5 years. Yeah, it's kind of like Jumpy. It's okay. I'm just going to kind of bounce around little bits and bobs here. Dude, this is so rad. Crazy how good everything looks. Joseph Cross said White Rabbit fans will be happy. There's still hope. Hell yeah. Insiders in the chat. Dun dun dun. No customization. The only visual customization in the build that I played was like the stuff that you equipped, like the backpack and the weapons. All right, I'm going to mute myself, guys, and then I'm going to get set up for the Lars stuff. All right. So hang out for a second, and then we'll have Lars. Cut myself off a bit there. All right. All right, I think I did everything right. We will see here momentarily. Bang, bang, bang. Thank you, Elu. Appreciate you. Perilo Leela is on Tau Ceti. Interesting. Oh,
Here.
hey, sir. How are you doing? Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. It's Jake, right?
Yes, it is. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
I do have some questions for you, but I know you've kind of been making the rounds, maybe, or talking to a bunch of people. So if anything is too repetitive, feel free to say we can
Oh,
move on.
no. I mean, it won't be repetitive for you or your chat and the stream, so let's do it.
Gotcha. Okay, so I just want to jump into, you've worked at Bungie for a long time, obviously. Is there anything about the development of Marathon that has stood out to you as different from other Bungie projects you've been a part of?
Um, that's really good. Like, I think every project has been totally different. Marathon it falls into that category of distinctly remember when the game team was forming and it was really small. Like, it was really only 2 or 3 people. And we'll do this thing at Bungie where that team will give a presentation, and so like the whole of Bungie will see, oh, cool, this team's working on X, and that team's working on Y, and the Destiny team's doing this, and blah blah blah. And so I remember seeing the initial um, conversation or like PowerPoint presentation of what Marathon was going to be, and from that moment I was like, I got to get on that team, because for me, I came to Bungie and my first job was on the multiplayer design team for Halo 3, and so
Wow.
I really enjoy PvP games, competitive multiplayer, just in general, like and sandbox shooters. And so it's like, wait, okay, so Marathon is going to be, it's going to be more than that. It's a survival sandbox PvP game with, AI elements. And so it's got the PvE, it's got the PvP where you're fighting other players. And I was like, this sounds right up my alley. I got very excited. And then petitioned to like join the team, and I had to go through a full interview process. I mean, I won't
Wow.
bore you with that, but it was very exciting, and I'm so glad that they brought me onto the team, because it's just been a blast this whole time.
Dude, that sounds incredible. I feel like, yeah, definitely it seems like it would have been right up your alley to kind of come over to this experience. Is there anything like, I guess you're the design lead for Marathon, so my understanding is that a lot of the like maps and contracts and the systems through which players interact with the game is kind of what your focus is?
Yeah, I'm on the run team, and we just have fun names, right, for the
Yeah.
teams, just to give people a sort of a organizational structure. And so the run team consists of the people that make the maps, which is like, you saw all the footage of Dire Marsh. There's more than just that, but the alpha contains 2 maps, and the final game will have 3 maps, and then a 4th map coming during the first season.
Wow.
So we have a lot of content there, I think, because the maps themselves are very, very intricate, very deep, a lot to learn. So the maps are one portion of it. The activities are another, which is the team that I'm specifically on. So like my title is a senior design lead, but there are a handful of senior design leads broken out across all these different areas. So, but I oversee the activities group, which is responsible for making taking the UESC, so those scary combatants, and placing them in the worlds, making it feel like the worlds and the UESC are there, and they sort of live there, and they're trying to defend it. So that's something that the team I'm on works on specifically, as well as all the activities you do. So there's a handful of things shown in the trailers earlier today, like a big floating ship in the sky, which we call an incursion. And so the UESC will be like harvesting these materials, and it's your job to go and like take them all out, and then take the stuff that they have in this crazy like sci-fi machine that they're trying to beam information into this ship in the sky. And so we will design and come up with those activities and then bring them to life. And I think I was saying this on the stream as well. Whenever we make one of these activities, we're keenly aware that there will be other players. And so, how do we create that tension? How do we design the entire experience around knowing other players will be there? So that's the second chunk of the run team. The third chunk is maybe the one you're most interested in, which is the contracts and the factions. And that's really our both in run and out of run, the way we, pay homage, but also like lean into the really deep lore, narrative, and backstory of the Marathon IP. But we're also, we're sort of reimagining some of those ways, like the visuals, for instance. But when you're talking to these AIs, right? Like each corporation or faction, if you will, has a AI that basically is your interface to them. So your interface to SIAC is Oni, and Oni's talking to you all the time. She is really your onboarding AI, support AI, I believe, as she calls herself. But then there are other AI that you meet for Traxxas and NewCal in the alpha content. But there's more than that in the full game. But that's where you're doing your missions, you're doing contracts for them, and we're paying off more of the world building by doing those things.
Wow. And kind of along the same line with the contracts, or like, I guess questing in extraction games in general can exist in a weird space for some players, because some players disregard them entirely due to kind of the difficulty of just trying to survive a run. How do you attract players towards these goals while also like taking into account that there are going to be some, or basically everybody, is going to be very stressed out about just trying to survive each individual run?
Yeah, and that's okay. I think people are going to approach this in different ways. Some people they'll see the cinematic coming up of Oni talking to you, and they'll be like blah blah blah, right? They'll back out of it. They won't see it. Other people will dig into that and pour over every single aspect of it and every nuance of the sentence and the words that are used. And we know that, and that's why we want to lean into a lot of the deeper lore or a more narrative payoffs being outside the run. There are still going to be plenty of things happening in the run, like, hey, you download a transmission from one of the colonists, and you hear a snippet of it in the run, like after you first, boot in and hack this laptop that one of the factions has asked you to do. And so we're still paying off some of that mid run, but we also know, to your point, it's very dangerous. It needs to be, because it's a sandbox PvP survival game. So we still want to pay off those lore bits, but we're very cognizant that you have to do it carefully, because players will be just like fending for their lives during it. So I think we found a pretty good balance, but honestly, I'll look to people like you and the community and the people who are going to play in the alpha to let us know how we're doing there, because I think we're on a good path. We can always do better. So yeah, that'll be interesting to hear how you react to it.
Was there a specific approach that you guys took when you're designing the AI in terms of trying to find this balance point between, okay, they are a legitimate threat that you're going to have to deal with, but also it's not, incredibly difficult, because obviously you do want a level of focus on the PvP experience. Is there something specific that you're keeping in mind when you approach the design of the enemies and how they operate in that regard?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. In some ways, I don't want to say it's simpler, but we know that the world has to be dangerous, even without hosts. Um, but it has to be learnable, and it has to be understandable, but it still has to be chaotic, and you will not, it's the game is designed for you to not always be um, successful on your runs. That is important. That is what makes a survival sandbox PvP game. And at the same time, there will be people that struggle with the UESC because they are difficult, and they have to be difficult. But there are also people who, they may be better at PvP, or maybe they're better at the PvE aspect, but the game allows you to sort of choose your path there. And sometimes you don't have full control, right? Say you're attacking a UESC squad, and another crew comes up on you, right? That will happen. But if you're more careful, and you're watching that squad, you might actually be the one coming up on another squad that is actively engaging the UESC, and you're able to take them out with their backs to you, or while they're, being while their attention is sort of focused on something else. So there's a wide variety of ways to play, and like that is super interesting for us, but we take that into account, right? And we also want the world to keep you on its toes. And so like that's why we do things like after a certain amount of time, the UESC will reinforce. Say you've cleared out a region. Okay, for example, you're in Dire Marsh. We showed all Dire Marsh today in all of our content. So that's the map that you saw today. There's a second one in the alpha, but there was no footage of that. But if you're in the alpha, you'll get to play it. But let's stick with Marsh. There's a region there called bioresearch. You will get into lots of scraps there. There's good things there for you to loot. However, you could take out all the UESC, and then you usually have a few minutes of quiet. I'll say quiet in quotes because you just don't know if there are other players nearby, but the UESC will reinforce. And so the world again has to push back on the player to keep that tension up. And so we keep all those things in mind, and that, we tune these things individually to make it feel as great as possible while also keeping players on their toes. I don't know if that fully answers your question, but it is something we think about.
No, absolutely. One of the questions from my chat from earlier was something along the lines of like, how do you hope to employ systems that make the team experience viable, like without comms? Since there's going to be a large audience of people coming to this, some of them are going to be more casual, and I guess how do you
Yeah.
build in an enjoyable single man system also involved for runners who want to go solo, and obviously like pings and stuff like that might be relevant. But is there anything specific you want to say about that?
Yeah, I think there's two things, like having non-voice comms between strangers and even preform crews is really important to us. So we have two I think, pretty good systems. One is, you mentioned, we have a ping system that has a lot of functionality. There's even a radial menu that you can say, hey, I'm going here, or hey, I'm looting here, or hey, there's danger over here. Like we've got, sort of traditional, like, hey, double tap ping, that'll just fire off an instant, hey, danger here. And then the radial that gives a bunch of options. The other piece I will talk about that I think leans into pings, but also is just fundamental and happens automatically is runner voice. And so that it's like in the world, the runners will say things in their own voice. So you might use the like radial ping to do attacking here and do a ping in the world. In the world, your crew members, even if even hostile people, they'll hear the, void say like attacking here, and the ping will appear. So those two things in combination, the ping and the runner voice, like the sort of automated vocalizations of, grenade out, reloading, my shields are broke, whatever, all of that stuff is also in there. So I think between those two systems, we have a pretty good base. Now, that isn't going to be everything to everyone. We know that. We know we can do better. And so I think for the alpha, it'll be really fantastic to hear like, hey, how's runner voice? How's ping? Are people like, is this enough? What are we not doing that we could be doing better? So yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Another question from the chat was about how, and sorry, I might be getting this wrong, Seb, a little bit, but how does, do you guys have any plans, I guess, for the narrative to impact the environments themselves or the map? Obviously, we're looking at a live service experience, so things are going to be updated and changing all the time. Are there going to be kind of tie-ins that you guys are talking about at this point in terms of like how we're engaging with the world itself physically, and that changes over time? Or will maps be more consistent to kind of retain the kind of PvP experience that does benefit from map knowledge, impacting a player's experience over time?
I think we're open to doing both. And I think what we're going to do beyond sort of launch is still open for us to figure out. We're talking about all sorts of, like, if I were to ask you, like, between seasons, right? We are going to have a seasonal game, right? That means everything that's in your vault at the end of a season, all the meta progression you've made with factions, that does get reset, and then that allows us to push the narrative forward, push the story forward, but also have everyone come in at the ground floor with the same sort of set of options, right? It also allows us to do things like uh, change aspects of a map or change some loot, like add weapons, add runners, on a different cadence, which we don't understand yet. We'll add new zones. So all of that stuff is on the table for us. I would say, from your perspective or your chat's perspective, like if there was one thing you could do between seasons, like what would you want to see?
I guess I mean, you're saying one thing that carries over season to season for your
Yeah.
individual character. Oh, yeah. Well, I would like, stuff like, okay, if you got to some sort of conclusion, completed some amount of contracts, right? There should be some sort of carryover item or something to visually, express like, hey, I was here first, I was here in the first season working on this or something.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of stuff we are definitely talking about. And again, no promises because the game's still in
Yeah.
development. We do think about that, like a way to commemorate that stuff. So I think, uh, uh, yeah, that's on people's minds. I hope we get something there, and I think we will. But again, we never know until we get to that point. We're like, yeah, this is really working, or no, it's not. Like, you can imagine the stuff we've done even in Destiny, where we commemorate like a seasonal triumph or something like that. I could see us experimenting with those kinds of things in this game.
That's awesome. And then I guess kind of along the same lines as you're talking about kind of like a seasonal reset. So I guess what is your guys' approach to balancing? Because like with other extraction games like Tarkov, has wipes. It's like at the beginning of the wipe, the gameplay is very different from the end of the wipe. And I don't know if that's necessarily something that they do intentionally or if it's just a natural consequence of people get better gear and items over that season. Are you guys trying to? I know in the gameplay review they had talked about. Even if you're, kind of down on your luck, you'll get a kit. Are you trying to make it an experience where there's a huge disparity between the really high end runners, or is it more consistent so that kind of people jumping in later on in the season or didn't have time to play as much will still have like very viable options for runs?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and it is important for us to that the sort of the your viability as a player is just as important around your skill, and so the differences that happen as your gear gets better are not just like straight up power differences. They are changes and updates, right? So we still want it to be that if you have gray gear and you get the drop on someone with purple gear, if you are a better player, it's more of a fight, and you could actually turn the tables on someone that has better gear. And the nice thing about that is then you get to take their gear, right? So it's like we're trying to keep that balance there, so it's not like, oh, this person has 2 months in, I just can't kill them. That is ultimately not our something we want to do. And so yeah, we are striving for that balance, that sort of sandbox PvP balance, where it still feels good and awesome to have those fights, and you don't see someone with purple shields and you go, well, I have to nope out. It's like, no,
Yeah.
if you know what you're doing, you can take them out.
That's awesome. I feel like Bungie consistently iterates on like a very similar set of science fiction concepts, like ancient aliens and the implications of advanced artificial intelligence and things like these. Is there any concept or like thematic element that within Bungie games you personally connect with and seek to interject into the projects that you work on?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's sort of the aspects of levity.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, I mean the things that sort of take you out of the fact that it's like, oh, I'm a runner, I'm a super soldier, I'm a guardian, whatever, and I'm running around and I'm messing things up and shooting things all over the place, and then something like sort of wild or weird will happen, and that stuff really resonates with me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also the details, right? Like I'll give this is a super silly example maybe, but like when I played Halo 1, and this was before I started at Bungie, I think it was the sniper rifle. You had the night mission, right? And you could turn
Mm-hmm.
on the night vision. I think it was on the white button or something on the original Xbox, and like there was a very specific sound for turning it off and on, and I was like, "Oh my god, the detail in this game is just mind-blowing." And so like that's like a super specific example of, but I take that forward and I like to add details like that. And I'm not talking about adding a sound effect. I'm just saying in general, I like to add interesting, fun, quirky details that like I know that there will be some percentage of players that notice it and get a kick out of it or are like, wow, I can't believe they thought of that. And so that's something I personally try to always keep alive and interject into all the stuff I'm working on.
That's awesome. How do you, I guess, personally hope that Marathon stands out in the extraction shooter space? Is there like a specific, I guess, kind of feeling you want players to come away with after playing Marathon?
Yeah, I hope they come away saying that it just like it feels good to play, right? I think something we have done pretty consistently is that the first person gunplay, moving through the world. We always say this internally. We want the controller or the keyboard and mouse to melt away, and so you don't notice that you're playing a game, and that's really important. The other thing is, I think like this particular genre is something we on the team really like. We like and we have a lot of fun with, and I personally, um, I really enjoy this sort of hybrid like sandbox PvP PvE game we've created, and so I hope people give it a shot. And I think the art style is so unique that I think the art style, the audio design, the music, the lore, I think there'll be a lot of different ways for people to check it out and be interested in. And so I think we have a lot of different avenues for people to come in and check it out. And I think, we also know it's not going to be a game for everyone. But the thing I like about it so far is there's not one way to play it, right? Like we talked about it on the stream. There are these different fantasies for the runners. And even if you're not good at PvP, um, if you're good at surviving and you're good at like outmaneuvering, outthinking, outplaying other humans and AI, you can still be like really successful at this game. And in fact, maybe even more successful than the people who go straight in and like try to get into every fight. So I think that's going to be really fun to see in the alpha how people react, like different player styles, how they attack the game.
Yeah. And so you brought up earlier, like obviously being a part of Marathon and then going back, being a part of Halo 3, and you kind of been a part of a lot of like major creative projects that have impacted so many people. How would you, I guess, describe the experience of being on the other side of, these, I guess, just creative endeavors that, for a lot of people, it's like, oh, the cherished memories of their lives are playing Halo 3 with their friends. And maybe, same thing will be said about Marathon one day. What is that like just from, I guess, a human experience on your end? What is that kind of like?
I'm just grateful. I have So before I started at Bungie, and I've been playing games forever, right? Like since I was tiny. Um, but when Halo 1 came out, uh, I was the person who would facilitate LAN parties for Halo 1. I would have people bring over 4 Xboxes and a Switch, and I had a Switch and network cables, and I was like, bring your TV, bring your Xbox, make sure you have enough controllers, and we would have like 16 people playing. And I remember how life-changing that was for me I was a game dev at a different studio. But like it was how I wanted to spend my free time. And so now when I hear people talk about having similar experiences from the Halo games that I worked on or Destiny games or, hopefully also from Marathon, like that's just, I don't know, it's incredible. I am very thankful every day that I get to do this because I love it. And so the ability to work on a thing that you love and also give people this experience that they cherish, I don't life doesn't really get much better than that. So for me, it's just I'm grateful to have these experiences.
That's awesome. And then also, I guess here, but before I got a few rapid fire questions, and then before you left, I wanted
Yes.
to ask real quick, what's your favorite book, movie, game? That might be
Oh,
hard.
that's good.
It might be
No,
hard.
no, it's fun. The book changes pretty frequently, but it like consistently for a long time it was Neuromancer, William Gibson's book. But it all sometimes it's The Hobbit, so it's like it sort of goes back and forth between those. Um, so I'm cheating and saying 2 for books.
Good choice.
For music, man, that's hard. I because this changes too, but Radiohead's OK Computer is pretty
Ooh,
fantastic. I've been don't know why, but for some reason right now I'm a heavy repeat on System of a Down's Steal This Album. If you've never heard it, it is amazing.
nice.
I don't know why, like it's just really resonating with me right now, and so it's been a very good one. And then was movies the
Yeah,
third?
movie. Yeah.
This one's really hard for me. I'll give 2 again because I'm cheating, but John Carpenter's The Thing,
Oh,
and
that's
then
classic.
Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. So I am a horror movie buff. I love them. Those 2 movies both like completely floored me when I saw them, probably way too young. So maybe that's why I love horror movies so much. I don't know. But both of those films just like fundamentally speak to me on a really like deep level. They resonate with me. So I gave you a lot of answers.
Dude, awesome. Thank you. And then here I have the rapid fire, just one word
Yeah.
answer if you're down for that. Okay, UESC
Yep.
or MITA?
UESC,
Sakaguchi or Traxxas?
Traxxas,
Silkworm or Cat?
Silkworm.
Ooh, best original marathon game?
Whoa. 2, Durandal.
Leela or Durandal?
Leela.
4 or the Sphit?
Ooh, 4.
The 4 or the Covenant?
Ooh, Covenant.
Favorite runner?
Void.
And then, I don't even know if you're going to know what this means. Blue Fork or Martone?
I don't know what this means, so I'm not sure how to answer it.
Very well, very well. Well, I appreciate your time. Some people in chat are saying
Yeah.
fork or spoon if you prefer. But
Oh. Well, what about sport?
oh, okay. I see. The Blue Fork cult will be a ever-growing presence in the marathon community,
Okay.
so prepare yourself for that.
Good. Oh boy. Okay. I'm ready.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you sharing your time with us here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for showing up today and asking good questions.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Wow. All right. So rad. Hey guys, I did see a lot of your questions. I had questions that I kind of wanted to ask. I tried to throw in some of them. But just for reference, the cosmetic questions they're saving for a later reveal, and the date and stuff and the PlayStation stuff they're not talking about right now. So they're just not getting into those questions today. But I did see them, and I hope that my questions were good. I'm sorry if I couldn't add in everything. There were a few things I wanted to hit, but I think he kind of hit on a lot of the stuff that some of you guys were asking. So, but yeah, so he will be able to talk about those at a later date. But just right now, they're saving that for a later reveal. Jake's on Cloud9 right now. Dude, for sure, man. I mean, Lars Backan, like obviously I don't keep like a Rolodex of names of everybody's worked on games, but going back and preparing for this and seeing how he was involved with Halo 3 and then being like, oh my fucking god, bro. Like I was watching E3 and stuff when this dude was being interviewed and talking about stuff. It's like very, very cool and surreal to get to speak to somebody who's been a part of that. And then obviously, that's just an entirely separate thing to him being a part of this project, which is obviously very special to me. So like, very, very cool experience trying to get those questions out. Questions are great. Good interview. Thank you so much. I'm just trying to ask things that interest me. I hope it comes across as helpful for everyone else as a little bit of insight. Also, I try not to ask, I want to throw in some questions. Like I'm sure he's getting asked a lot of those questions. And if you guys don't know, he did speak to a bunch of other content creators. So I think some of those questions that maybe I missed, they probably picked up and were more centered on some gameplay stuff like that. Jake's on Cloud9 right now. Yeah, sorry, I may have already read that, but no, absolutely I am. And that's what I'm saying is like, dude, just to be able to speak to someone who is in the realm of creating this, like he's talking about, doing LAN parties with his friends, bro. Like I'm in, like that's a very similar experience to a lot of us here in this chat. I think I identify with that experience, and it's like, just the idea that, I get to speak to him in this capacity, even just from the perspective of all of us getting to hear him in this light, and also, like I said, have these core childhood experiences around building relationships and building our concept of like what we like in stories and games around projects he was very deeply ingrained in. Just super awesome. Damn, I hope that means that it's still in the early stages of developing something big with customization. I think they're going to have a lot more to say later on, for sure. Jason Jones, Lars Backan, Max Hoberman. Good deal. Could be true. That's definitely something that can be made last, yeah. Bet skins are coming, but hopefully not with major model changes. By the way, Jake, I'm so happy for you with how far you've come in such a short time. Getting to interview developers feels like such a privilege. Absolutely, it really is. And I'm very grateful. I'm grateful to all of you guys for hanging out with me and making Bungie think that I'm worthy of, having opportunities like this. I appreciate you guys. It really is like a very, very surreal experience. I'm very grateful for all of this. Yeah, thank you so much, dude. Rockin' as well. Thank you, man. Good on Bungie for being very open and communicative with their fans. Yeah, and I think Scarrow9 said that in his part of the gameplay overview video they plays. Like Bungie, guys, I'm my life experience outside of this is very, very far removed from the games industry. So like I don't have any experience. I'm not a tech guy. Entirely different world that I come from. So to get to talk with people who work at Bungie and see how communicative and open they are, it seems like top tier. I mean, like I said, I don't know for certain. Maybe that's how all game companies operate, but it seems like they're really taking in a lot of feedback and trying to build a product that everyone loves. Rex, you're my Anakin, Jake. Hell yeah. Thank you, Ghosty. I appreciate you. Scarrow has a ton of videos with a lot of detail. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, and Scarrow was at the in-person playtest as well, so I'm sure he's got some good deets. You are worthy. Oh, thank you. We'll see. I'll try to live up to it, right? But yeah, and like I said, I do have like a breakdown video that kind of goes over the trailer. From my perspective and my experience, I do think that there's some narrative stuff that I am gonna, like I said, avoid talking about today, just to see what people say. And for me, that's coming from a place of like I was saying earlier, there's some implications to some of the stuff going on that, thank you, Darcinia. I appreciate you. Sorry, guys, I'm turning my stuff back on for this. There's some implications to some stuff that I saw that I don't know if they're a placeholder or if we're allowed to say it or if other people would come to that conclusion. So I'm holding out. Forebear, how's it going, dude? We're doing well. We got to talk to Bife and we just finished talking to Lars Backan. Very cool day. Super surreal. Obviously, like insanely blown away by that trailer at the end. Plug, how's it going, dude? You've been around for a long time. Appreciate you stopping by. Why did the runners have the same child photo in the cinematic? Because I think that the AI that they're interacting with is like it's a test, right? To gauge what level of mental clarity or what do they remember about their past. Think about it. They're mercenaries. They're here getting paid. They don't even remember what they look like as kids. They can't even recognize the fact this is just the same child photo being used over and over. These runners aren't truly mercenaries. They're probably not even getting paid. They can't even remember what they look like. It just really paints our role as a runner way more as like a slave, right? Jake, the sixth runner, medic, might be the first runner in the picture you were sent. The picture I was sent? Oh, okay. You're talking about the thumbnail for this video, or you're talking about this guy that we see at the very end of this trailer? I think we had him pulled up earlier. Not the very end, but with the other group of runners that pop up here. Hold on. You're talking about this guy right here? Come on. It's because the narrative is very deep, yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that they're hiding. Like you're talking about him with the shoddy. He is carrying like a lot of packs, right? Some UESC propaganda. I don't know, what is it? Oh, the one with the TV headish. Is that a TV head? At least say if you saw any Mida in the game. There is a lot of Mida stuff. Like I said, the only enemies I encounter were the UESC and then I guess the ticks, kind of more of an environmental thing. Mida is one of the groups that you can get contracts from, is another thing as well. Another thing that I talked about in my video that I'm personally not going to talk about yet because I'm going to just wait for everyone else to do it, because the answer that I got from the narrative team when I was asking about kind of the NDA specifics was a little vague to me. And so I'm going to wait for everyone else to say it, just because, I don't want to step on anyone's toes or say something that like maybe I saw and came to some sort of conclusion that they didn't think was super relevant maybe or something. But Maida has a very strong presence, but the only enemies or like characters that you see are the runners and the UESC. Cells within cells, runner knows. I think they're selling some pretty damn exciting day. That's awesome. I think they're selling some bullshit. Ooh, who is? Sick. Thanks for the answer. You're welcome. No worries. Even from this short. Okay, hold on. Sorry guys, I'm trying to catch up. Adobe Photoshop confirmed runner. So the white one. The white one was the thief from the concept art. So I don't know. Really hope that we get some weird ability designs post-launch. Not seen any character I fully want to main yet. Okay. Guys, the characters feel pretty rad. I feel like they didn't really give you a good... I feel like the gameplay trailer it showed off Locust, I think, the most. Even, honestly, the gameplay video that they included in from last week. But, dude, Void and Glitch go so fucking hard. But there's a big difference feeling between all of them. So remember the picture that Bungie sent you with the t-shirt pack, the runner at the front. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, that guy. Gotcha. He might be medic. Interesting. Yeah, all the runners that I talked about today were the ones that were in the build I played. You only play one map, Jake? I wonder if each map will have different NPC enemies. I did play two maps. That's another thing where it's like I was told I can talk about it in a very vague way, but I'm just gonna wait for everyone else to say it. If someone drops the name in chat, they'll talk about it. But I'm gonna wait to see what everyone says today and then say that. But I did play two maps, and I prefer I thought both the maps were very good, but I actually preferred the other map. One of the maps I played was Dire Marsh. I'm sorry, but I feel like I am leaning a little towards glitch worship, bro. Glitch worship is very... People are going to agree with you. The medic. Also, Martin Bulletin just posted that there is no proximity chat. Yeah, okay, so I'm just going to explain to you my understanding of proximity chat. This is not Bungie saying this. This is not, I'm just going to explain to you what my understanding is that I believe for some legal situations, there's like legislation in some countries to where if you want to have proximity chat, you have to... Well, okay, if you have voice chat in your game, you have to have a way for the people listening to immediately mute or block that person if they're saying something, right? Because it's an extraction game, it would give you a little bit of a tactical advantage if you could know who was near to you, or like know their name to block them, or to see them, like to pull up a map and see how many runners were left in the game. So I think for that reason, it's unlikely to me that proximity chat is going to be in the game, because I think they want to be able to like operate in those markets. And I think the games that do have proximity chat, like Call of Duty, maybe might have an option like to do something like that, or maybe like games like Tarkov don't really care because where they operate from doesn't really matter, or I don't know if they care about that kind of thing. That's just my understanding. I believe that that's not gonna be there. Kimmy loves glitch. Said she looks like Yolandi from Chap. Yes, from Chappie. Yeah, absolutely. She really does, right, Rage? Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, I fuck with glitch. Glitch and Void are my favorites. So hyped for the lore and story. As someone who just got into it a few days ago, I'm genuinely obsessed. The ARG has me hooked. Hell yeah, dude. A lot of really great stuff. I'll be diving into more over these next few years, hopefully. Void's design is great, yeah. And I think Void really stood out. I wasn't like as sold on Void. Obviously in the gameplay I was, but like visually until this cinematic trailer, I feel like does such a good job of pointing out how fucking cool they are. Mad about her, but after the cinematic, goddamn, yeah. Seeing her kick back and the casual fits. Spill the details on the other map. The moment that I hear other people doing it, I will. I'm a huge Locust guy. Locust is fun. Sorry guys, trying to catch up. You don't care about Void at all? Damn, I love it. Maining Void, no question. Dude, the stealth stuff is so powerful, especially if you're doing solo runs. The stealth was like, the invisibility was very, very, very important. Just being able to get out of sticky situations when you didn't have a team with you. Do you think Biomata might be the kind of next evolution of Battleroids with the memories? Kind of reminds me of the Spartan 2 versus Spartan 3 comparison. In the same way that I think like cloud gaming is kind of like the next iteration of like you're still playing video games, but it's like we're slowly like Battleroids were recycled human bodies, right? So it's like, okay, first we had humans and we put like a robot limb on them, right? And then we had like dead humans and we kind of put them back together with like a primarily robotic frame. Now we like don't even have humans. The body's completely synthetic. The only human part of it is the mind. So yeah, I think that is like a good comparison to draw. But Battleroids specifically, I think were much more destructive because they kind of operated on different, like, you know, much more like a nuke, whereas these are more like special forces soldiers, kind of, maybe. What'd you think of the Sfit in the cinematic Durandal reveal at the end of season 1? Incoming, brother. Maybe, Forbear, maybe. When I was chatting with Bife earlier, we talked about that quite a bit. But yeah, dude, the Sfit. Have you guys seen Nope? I was getting big Nope vibes from the Sfit in the cinematic. Hold on, let me see if I can go back and pull it up real quick. Where is it? It's towards the beginning, right? Oh yeah, it's in that hallway. Keep going. Protect your eyes. Just everything being labeled is so rad. Yeah, see with this lawn wavy, you can tell it's like it's not actually cloth, right? It's like a membrane. See a lot of people saying this game isn't doing anything different than any other extraction shooter. What do you think? I think that the problem with other extraction shooters is that they are not approachable, and this game is going to resolve that problem for a lot of people. Hunt obviously has now come to consoles, but came to consoles very late, had a huge player base beforehand, and the systems in it are a lot more in depth, and the time to kill is very low, and it's a little more serious. This game has a lot of stuff that people are going to be able to connect with from a more casual point of view. The ping system is robust. The team communication stuff is excellent. The map is cohesive and easy to read. The layout and design of the UI is simplified in a way that is beneficial and not like pulling away from something. And the gameplay itself feels much more familiar to a AAA shooter than this is my personal take, than what you get from like a Tarkov or a Hunt. While those games are great, they're niche in how the mechanics operate. And this, I think, is gonna, the thing that it's doing different is this is gonna be the refined peak version of this for a broad audience. And then obviously, from my perspective, the narrative stuff I think is unmatched and is going to continue to be unmatched, and especially like what I was talking about with Bife for way too long, right? Amount of time, probably nobody wanted to hear that, but the environmental storytelling and the impact that has on the narrative and how things unfold is going to be like one of a kind from my perspective. Who's down for Triple Glitch? Hell yeah. Had no idea about the lore for seeing the first ARG analysis, the first video in years I didn't play at faster speed. Oh, well, I'm glad it was good for you, dude. I appreciate that. Void gives me a Marilyn Manson and Trent Reznor Android vibes. Fuck yes, bro. Yeah, and as you know, that interview with Joseph Cross that I believe went live yesterday was so good. And listening to him talk about his thoughts on art and design, honestly, it's crazy how impressive and tapped in Michael was to understanding Joseph Cross' artistic vision when he was producing the video for me, the art video from a few months ago. How consistent it is with his influences. Obviously, a lot of that was outlined in the tweet that he had put out, but man, awesome. At some point, we have to fight some of the Forgotten Battleroids as a mini boss. That'd be so fucking cool. I know. What if they're like buried too? You unearth them or something. The Nope alien is so sick. Yeah, right. That's the kind of energy I'm getting from this guy. Yeah. Just like the speed of him too is interesting. And yeah, this anomalous field that pops up. There's so many cool little things here. This is an amazing design for the Sfit. Hardcore extraction shooter. There's already a game for you. Exactly. Exactly. And it's pretty good. Can't wait to avoid this scene as soon as I get to see it. Yeah. Honestly, seeing how many UESC enemies were in the map made me feel a lot better about it as a mainly PvE player. Yes. Oh, yeah. There is a lot. Like, it'll be interesting. Like I said, like a lot of the time I spent didn't have full lobbies. So it'd be cool to see the balance that they come to with that. But I think you'll be satisfied for sure. Think that the voice you hear in the gameplay reveal trailer could be Durandal, or at the very least make a very good Durandal. Absolutely, yeah. And I just put out a full trailer breakdown, and at the end of that, I make a extended case for why I believe that is what it is, for sure. Just see Jake standing in a room watching a computer to see if any text box out as a group just sneaks up on him. Yeah, okay. All right, hold on. Guys, I'm about to tell you, hold on. I'm about to tell you the greatest story. I've been holding on to this since I played. I can't believe I haven't said this yet. All right. So when I was playing the game, right? And I was like, every moment I could, I was staying up all night, like just trying to do it. I have kids, I have a wife, I have like a life, I have a lot of stuff going on, but I was like, dude, I gotta put as much time as this as I can, really just try to, make my understanding as good as it can be. And so I was playing solo and just running around the maps, looking for stuff, looking at every little nook and corner, trying to understand what each point of interest, is, and what could that be saying about the larger narrative and the way the maps were designed, and just trying to see everything, right? I'm running around solo, and so it's like I'm really trying to avoid players. I'm playing as Void, and so I'm going invisible and just like really being on the outskirts, crawling through vents, being very sneaky, right? And I am sitting in the corner of this room, okay, and I am like looking at some stuff. We'll say that. I'm looking at some stuff, and I'm like, holy shit, this is so rad. Like, but I'm literally like, I'm like this fucking close. I'm like looking at it like this, and I'm like with a gun in the wall. Just, I have no loot on me. I'm just walking around. I'm just being interested, just exploring, right? And a full kitted out team, I think it was like Locust, Blackbird, and Glitch, just bombard into the room and gun me down, okay? I could just get senselessly murdered right away, all right? Okay, buddy, brag. Anyways, I get murdered, right? And the very next day, I have the opportunity to play with one of the developers who but like one of the guys that you guys would recognize as someone on the development team. And I'm telling him, I was like, yeah, I've been spending a lot of time, like running in solo. And he's like, oh, were you soloing Void last night on the other map? And I was like, yeah, that's what I was doing all night. He's like, oh yeah, I was playing with Jason Jones and Pete Parsons on part of the game stuff, and we killed you, I think, in one of the buildings. And I was like, are you kidding? I got murdered by those guys? That's so rad. That's so fun. Cool. It was such a surreal experience. He's like, yeah, they're doing our play testing and stuff. So if that story is true or not, or maybe he was just trying to make me feel good, feel like I got a cool experience, I don't know. But yeah, it was very fun. I see you, Beamo. Hold on, let me scroll up here. I saw some random question, Jake. When you played it, did you look at the settings customization in the game? Unsure if that's breaking NDA territory, but just curious. A lot of the setting stuff is probably like definitely open to change, and there was definitely some like standard setting stuff that was still being worked on, and like it was very much a work in progress. But I would say all of the standard stuff that you probably see in Destiny and modern extract shooters is going to be there in terms of like Gamma and FOV and stuff like that. Cinematic is definitely the 4 nukes bioweapons being unleashed on the colony. Bioweapons, good thought, good thought. After the nuke of the colony, the 4 use some sort of biological weapon. Could we? Where are you grabbing that from, little dragon student? Are you just saying from what we saw of them throwing up? Know more about the story? Yes, indeed. Overwatch reticle skull upon death made me feel really disgusted. You don't like that? I thought it was cool. Like the Spartan 2s are much stronger than the Spartan 3s. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to work backwards here. Difficulty setting for PvE. No, because it's like a PvE experience, so everybody loads in the same stuff. Like the same difficulty. Like they're that's on the server end. Jason Jones and the car collector. Indeed. I can run over. Ruthless. Yeah, it was pretty cool. May have already answered this, but are there PvE bosses? Yes. Yeah, there are more difficult PvE enemies And also there's like some resources that I could see in the skill tree. Another thing that I'm going to wait for other people to talk about, because I got a vague answer about the NDA for that. That makes it seem like there are going to be other enemies as well that you will be able to kill to get resources and stuff. That'll probably be bosses. But also the bosses like can go invisible. They're a little more advanced. They're, more deadly. Some of them have grenade launchers and stuff. Compilers incoming. I sure hope so. Did you get to try out any of the sponsor kits? Did you get to pick your sponsor or get a different kit? Yeah, so I only got it once. Okay, my understanding, and they talked about this in the gameplay reveals, that like if you're down on your luck, they'll help you out. So like if you run down to 0 and like you have nothing, you'll still get to load in with like a weapon and a backpack and a few. I don't know if you get a shield, but you'll get like stuff that you can load in with. The eyes emoji. But I don't know if you pick where that comes from. Maybe it's the faction that you have the most rep with or something. I don't remember specifically, but basically it's like one of those things where it's like to make it more friendly to the extraction genre for like a larger group of people. It's like even if you totally get fucked up and you lose everything, which is kind of like a difficult place to get in to unless you're me and Tarkov, you'll still be able to load in with like a nice kit of stuff. Other enemies be brutal. I did not breed any enemies in the playtest I was part of. Hold on here. Let me just see. What if the Svit and Durandal come back for some Yarrow tech on Tau City 4 they didn't know about? That's a good point. That's why shit has gone crazy in the last few decades between M2 and New Marathon. That would be super sick. Which creators did you play in a squad with? I don't know. I guess they wouldn't care. If I said I played with like the playtest that I was a part of had a lot of the creators that you guys saw today, and like Scarrow was in that playtest. Rilo was in that playtest as well. Bearkey, Flotsam, Stankrat, Bon. People like this, Joku as well. So a lot of people. I got to play with a lot of devs too. I really enjoyed getting to play with devs. Very cool people. Very kind. Gamers indeed. Kind of like going as a scav in Tarkov. Yes, but you get to keep, you get to keep the kit as well. Are you sure of that? What is it? Calling it right now. Season 3 will be the return of the 4. They'll be led by Tycho in the body of a Svit controller. That's a fucking rad idea. Yep. Love it. Save that comment in case it turns out to be right. Any mechanics to prevent ratting? Okay, so like it's difficult, like the way that the maps are designed, like in Tarkov, a lot of the extractions are like on the border or the edge of the map. So it's like if you're going to like hole in the wall or a checkpoint or something, the checkpoints or the extractions aren't really like set up in corners like that. So they're all kind of like in more open areas. And also like the UESC patrols, thank you, Sealker. The UESC patrols like are constant. So like even if you wipe like an area, at least in the build that I played, and also Lars was just talking about this when he was on stream, they'll come back and repopulate. You even see one of the dropships in the trailer. I don't know if I pointed that out in the breakdown, but you see one of their ships fly by in the gameplay trailer. So like in terms of like preventing ratting, I just think that the AI enemies are probably going to be a part of that. And then also they're not like in corner spots. So like, yeah, you could definitely hang out on an extract, but the square one is the ships. But yeah, specifically to prevent it, I don't know. But it's just like the extraction points are set up a little bit different. Also, when the extraction points go up, it's, it shoots up like a beam of light into the sky. So they kind of want to create tension during your extracts. Somebody said other maps are Data Wall and the Quarantine. That is, I'm not familiar with that as a map title. Those may have been points of interest on the maps I played. Because seasons 4 will be General to Fear Battleroid. Fucking love it. Yep. Please screenshot this for later. Or grab the clip. Yep. Predictions. Balanced quarantine equals marathon. Quarantine equals marathon wreckage. I didn't play anything on the marathon or see a marathon map or anything like that. My dream team? Are you asking me what my dream team would be? Scarrow's pretty good. Scarrow is really good. So he would probably be on my dream team. But I think my dream team would be all of you guys. I want to do runs with the community, guys. Would Marathon be considered extraction light? No. I would say this is 100% extraction shooter game. There's no option to not. Like, if you're in a match, you have to extract. It's, you want to get the loot, you want to complete the contracts. There's not a PvE mode, at least in the thing that I was a part of. Do you know if Pestily was invited? Kind of surprised that I haven't seen him yet. I don't think he was. I don't think so. At least not that I'm aware of. Like, he wasn't. I didn't play with him in the playtest I did. Blackbird, the new design for the Blue Fork Runner? I don't think so. I do not think so. I think the Blue Fork Runner is going to be maybe like a character thing later on. Is there only one extract? Also, can multiple teams extract at once? Okay, so in the version that I played, the way the extracts worked is that they were in multiple areas. So like when you would load in, you would have an extract that your team is like destined for. So like you have an extract that's set aside for your team, and you can take that extract, or you can take an extract that like is a UESC extract post looking kind of thing, where it's being protected by one of those boss style enemies. So you can't like take like another team's extract, but you also can, like if you're running through like a POI and you see like an extract there, it's like, okay, there's another team on the map with me. This is someone's extract, they may be dead or maybe they're coming here. Ratting is when a player stays in a hidden spot to kill people. Yeah. That's right. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, it's just like camping and extract. Permanent runner upgrades you collect over time. Yes, yeah. So that's kind of what they were talking about on the upgrade pass for your character. At least in the version I played, there were long-term upgrades, kind of like stuff that you would see in Tarkov or Hunt. More space for your inventory, or passive abilities for your runners, like looting faster, stuff like that. Well, hold on, sorry guys. Around 5.1, 5.5 inches. All right, I'm gonna skip that. This is where Lars Backan has been all these years. Seems that way, dude. Very cool. Very cool that he got to come out and talk to us. Change the stream title. Oh, good point. Good point. Thank you. Yeah, if you guys do want to see the interview with Lars, scroll back a little bit. That started at 4:30, and then before that, I was talking to Bife probably at around 2:30, maybe. I don't know, maybe like 3 hours ago versus an hour ago, if that makes sense. All right. Hold on. Yeah, I'm gonna stick around for a few more minutes, just if you guys have any more questions. Jake, is there something similar to Viblins in Marathon? I did not get any Viblins or see any Viblins. The only cosmetics, and just kind of on a more serious note, the only cosmetics, things that change your appearance in the build that I played, were the backpacks and the weapons. And I'm kind of loosely saying the weapons because obviously, like, is it really changing your appearance if the weapon is just like, being carried on your back? About how long were the matches? 25 minutes, but I think in the thing today they said that that's going to vary based off the map and obviously, be tweaked from when I played. Any more info on terminals? Okay, so the terminal system obviously was like my favorite thing, but as you unlocked, sorry guys, I just want to see this video in the background here. Let me know if the video like is like chopping up or something. But yeah, the way that the terminal system works is like you would complete contracts or potentially get stuff on your run, and it would unlock little kind of like terminals for you to get lore from. I think there's obviously some deeper stuff in there that like I'm holding off for today just to see what everyone else says, because the guidance I got on the NDA was a little bit vague. So I might have more to say about that tomorrow, or maybe some of your other favorite YouTubers are, you know, have more willingness to test the waters there. But yeah, the terminal is very cool. You can click through. It is like it's very similar to like what we're getting in the ARG. Obviously not with like, you know, the Linux style command stuff, you know, but very, very sick, and a cool like database. And I hope that we get to keep that stuff over season to season as well. Alpha just for America, or is it more codes for America but also codes for Europe? I think anyone can get a code, but they're prioritizing people in North America, it seems. I believe the language they used was North American focused. So I don't know what that means, but it seems like other people will be able to. But look at Scarrow fucking screen peeking, bro. He's looking at and in Xperia. Mom said no screen peeking. Yeah, let's go terminals. Exactly. Very cool. Any secret spots in the maps where we need to unlock by doing puzzles? There are secret spots. That's another thing I don't know if they're talking about yet. There are very secret cool shit. Also, there's like keys that you have to get that are, there's like different keys for different areas. Chakasins? I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be Chakasins. We'll see. We'll see. I'm trying not to be... I don't... That's another thing I'm going to wait and see what people say. I don't... We'll see. I hope there's Chakasins. I'm obviously a big Chakasin. And maybe now that the Minecraft movie has come out, Bungie will recognize the potential of having a Chakasin in there. How many secrets are you still hiding? Give us a percentage. They're not really like secrets. I would say like... There's like maybe 4 or 5 very large narrative things that may have been work in progress type things. They may have been like not something that the playtesters would normally like take note of, like I said, because a lot of them were like they would main like other games, like they weren't like huge like narrative kind of channels or stuff. But maybe like 4 or 5 things that would have a pretty profound impact on the story that it doesn't seem like they've announced yet. Taking questions, I appreciate that, and I look forward to playing. Yeah, of course, dude. Of course, yeah. I've been waiting. I've been trying to you know, talk about this stuff for a long time, but I had to wait for the NDA stuff. My favorite YouTube. You're too sweet, Ghosty. I appreciate you. Bungie tweeted the NDA is optional. Like, this is a big troll. Oh, okay, NDA is on. Say whatever. A lot more than he is leading. He is leading. No, I don't think I know like anything too crazy. And I did have some conversations with some other very big channels that I'm sure, you know, maybe you guys have watched their videos they just released right now, and I have not seen them yet. And they indicated to me that they were going to be talking about more stuff than I was gonna say in my video. I don't know if that ended up being true though, so I'm just gonna wait to see what everyone else says. It's NA. It is saying NA only. The information I was giving is that it was North American focused, but that other people would be able to play. And obviously, you know, well, I don't know. But that's that's the information I was given. Keep hiding stuff. I'm not trying to hide anything, guys. But I am gonna maybe like tomorrow we're doing the Vault of the Disciples raid. I think I'm doing the 10 a.m. run. So at 10 a.m. I'm going to stream tomorrow, and I'll field questions then as well. And after tonight, you know, I'll do my homework and see what everyone else is saying and see if they spilled the beans on some stuff. There's some stuff that seemed very, very intentionally left out of the marketing materials, and they gave us the option to talk about it, but like I said, the answer that I got from the narrative team was very, very vague. They even said it was vague. So that was my guidance. And I don't want to step on anyone's toes, and I think they're putting together something really special. So, Chakasan Jockey, exactly. What am I ducking? Okay. What does the thief mural mean? Which thief mural? Are you talking about the concept art from last year? I still don't know what the A type or the barcode on there is all about. Ticks, I guess. What are you talking about? Yeah, the ticks, which is cool because tick is obviously reference from the original series. Obviously, a different enemy in those games, very much so. Zamita multi-tool in the game was not in the build that I played. But perhaps that's because they all went to Destiny. We need the map, Jakes. Open up to us. Come on, please. Just hints like, hey, it's a farm biome or something. It's the other map that I played was a different biome. I'm just gonna wait to talk. I do think that other people are gonna talk about it, but like I said, the answer was very vague that I got. And they also said that it was just some vague language, so I'll wait. But the moment that I can say it, I'll let you guys know. I don't know. Meanwhile, eating chocks and wings to recover health. Yeah, if there's a dungeon section, NDA is just a suggestion. Thank you, Taco. Martin said NDA is no more. NDA is no go. Might speak. Shaker for your talk. Thank you, guys. I appreciate Martin for looking out for me. Filled in my country in the survey and it instantly booted you. Ooh, interesting. Maybe some countries aren't supported. I don't know. It said NA focus though, not NA exclusive when I got the information for it. Do you see any classic marathon enemies, i.e. fit or 4 units? No. The only enemies I saw were the UESC, and then they kind of were talking about the ticks as enemies. I just kind of view them as like environmental elements because they're like these little bugs, but if you count those as enemies as well, then the ticks and the UESC. How long have you been holding out on secrets? 2 months, maybe? I didn't really hold out, though. And all the speculation stuff I put out there, I just kind of made sure it was supported by stuff that was available. But, all of the insight about the narrative that I have, except for these handful of things that they kind of seem to be pseudo-revealing in-game in the playtests I did, are coming from the ARG stuff. And nothing too crazy. Okay. Martin canceling the NDA. Thank you. Appreciate you. There are some really good references as well to the classic marathon games and other stuff, which I don't know if those end up being included in the final game. Like one of the ships or one of these kind of maybe you'll see it here. It was on Dire March when I played. You see how there's like vehicles everywhere. One of these vehicles look like prep vehicles that are still kind of shrink wrapped, and they were labeled ALF-1 on one of them. Also, in the gameplay overview trailer, there's a lot of great little Easter eggs with the nicknames here. I think I wrote it down somewhere that pop up. Hold on. Yeah, so if you go to the gameplay overview trailer that they showed during the thing, one of the names was ALF-1, Vidmaster, Roland, John Marathon, Born on Board, Frog Blast. So, classic. Discord Alpha Link only allows you in if you check NA as your location. The priority pass link I got let me through, despite me checking Australia. Interesting. Okay. Listen. My understanding is that for the streaming stuff, you only got the codes to give away if you were a Twitch streamer. But I can upload my VOD of my coverage on this after the fact, and I might be able to get some codes to give away to the community. If that is the case, then I'll make sure to keep you guys updated on that. Hearing is Jake will not be locked in tomorrow. I will be locked in. I'm pumped. Chip, thank you. Dodgy, how's it going, dude? I saw Dodgy. Dodgy started his stream early. He's reacting to all the stuff. He's watching the marathon stream. Dodgy's ass starts playing fucking Jackbox. The wall bar code. I don't know, dude. I haven't seen anything come back. Undefined. I think the things that I pointed out in my video are going to be the next steps. The 3 characters underneath the symbols that we saw that we had pointed out on the packaging I got. There's another one of those inside the trailer, and also there's 64B is right next to God in the symbols from the ARG. Would they be able to just have a turn VoIP on and off? That way we don't have to worry about gameplay issues. Maybe this is just semantics. Yeah, I was talking about VoIP earlier. My understanding is that and this isn't from Bungie, this is just my separate understanding, is that there's an issue with like certain legislation and policies in different countries where they're gonna have the game to where like you have to be able to like mute people, and thus you would have to see their names, and they're worried about like maybe potentially the tactical advantage that would give you an extraction game. Pictures on the website are so nice. Ooh, did the website get updated? Let me see here. Marathon the game. That's the game. Wow, it got a full overhaul. Sick, dude. English news media. Screenshots. Oh, is this? Are they selling these now? Ooh, I got my runner shirt on. Oh, dude, the Sakaguchi shirt. I love that. Saint Red Spoon convert. All right, gentlemen, I gotta head out. Really enjoyed this, Jake. I may be a Red Spoon, but I'll follow your Blue Fork ways to the end. Love everybody that made all this happen, bro. Thank you so much, Rage. I appreciate it, man, and thank you so much for the donations earlier. I appreciate that. On the other hand, I don't mind waiting for the full version. Should be better than alpha. True. Seeing new Thief art. I'm back to Thief worship. Where's the logos and key art? Maybe. Yeah, all these pictures are super sick. Videos, photos, maybe. Oh, these are sick. Wow, dude. Website scrolling. Sorry, I'm getting sucked in because you guys pointed it out. Why's the gameplay trailer got so many dislikes? All the comments are either lay microtransactions or lay extra. I have not heard lay something or the other for a long time, which are both kind of dumb. Did they talk at all about microtransactions in the thing? That Jackbox was so dead, I forgot to even sign in myself. It was all fun though. First stream was nice. Any music suggestions for a fast-paced, immersive edit for the cinematic segment? So clean, I almost did unspeakable things. I don't know. Maybe you should hit up Detraya. I feel like Detraya's tracks rocks. His Code Ray said it. Marathon Report, how's it going, dude? How you feeling about it? I'm feeling really good. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. I got to speak to Lars and Bife, and everything that they showed today was very cool. I'd gotten the trailer and stuff a little bit early, so I could put that video out today. But obviously the cinematic and stuff was all very new to me. Dachi banned you from his Jackbox for no reason. Bastards. Strange amount of hate. I just think the last 2 weeks there's been a lot of positive sentiment towards Marathon, and a lot of people who are excited about the game and experiencing a lot of very cool stuff, and that has been a big change in pace from what's been going on. But if over the past 2 years there has been a lot of negative sentiment towards Marathon, and I just think there's a large portion of the Destiny community and a lot of people who aren't interested in extraction game who are going to look at this and go, have whatever complaint they're going to have about it. So it happens. I feel like people are making up a game to get mad at instead of looking at what was actually shown. Yeah, I mean, dude, that cinematic is one of the most impressive narrative pieces that we've gotten from a game this year, in the past year. Like, wild. Any Discord suggestions? What do you mean, evidence? You can join our Discord. We got a lot of stuff. Yeah, our Discord is if you're trying to follow the ARG or you want to keep track of news information, we have a news rule, so you can kind of get tagged whenever there's big news around Marathon. The ARG stuff is documented in kind of a very clean post that has it all like in canonical order, so that's helpful. Somehow they made a thing worse than Overwatch. It's not like Overwatch. It does not play like Overwatch at all. Trailer actually looks worse than the gameplay. They just haven't seen the actual gameplay. Which trailer? You think the trailer looks bad? Which one? Looks awesome. It's also alpha. We'll see the UI models cleaned up for sure. Yeah. That's just like your opinion, man. Indeed. Really hard to watch them talk about the game and not see the amount of love going into it in both gameplay and art. It's just people being dismissive. Yeah. But hey, that's all, it's all good. It's the internet. People like to not like things, and that's fine. It's kind of one of the beautiful things about the human experience is we get judged. We get to put our thoughts and ideas and our appearance into the world and have other living things experience it and tell us what they think about it. And that's cool. Sometimes it comes off a little more angry or distasteful, but that's all just part of the big thing we're doing here on this rock floating through space. Think you managed to get the alpha access? Nice, Ghosty. Good stuff. Gameplay reveal didn't do it justice. Gotta play it. I think the gameplay reveal trailer was really, really rad. And in terms of like showing off how chaotic and dynamic a lot of the gameplay stuff is. You get the section shirt, you gotta with Stray. If you got the dough, if you got the cash for it. And you gotta send me a picture on Discord or put it in our server so we can all see it. There was some cool like tie-in ARG stuff to the last round of merch that they sold for the first ARG. Just got it? Nice, yap. Definitely send some pics when you get it. Gameplay material didn't do it for you. The raw gameplay footage we got was very sick, though. Oh, you're okay. I get what you're saying. Like the gameplay overview versus the trailer. Marathon and other extraction shooters are not for everyone. Very good point. Very good point. Yeah, something that Joe Ziegler touched on in his dev update and Lars talked about in the conversation we just had as well. Kudos to everyone who worked on it, of course. Yeah, absolutely. So. Didn't have to get that deep take. I'm sorry. It just comes out of me, dude. I feel like I've been very emotional today. I shed a tear at the end of the cinematic. I was like, damn, bro. Like, I don't know. I think it's just me. Yap Yap Alive confirmed, yeah. Pure art, indescribably gorgeous. For you and the team for this. Yeah, dude, stunning. Blown away. Yeah, the whole thing is it's very just, to see it all to come together and to be, thinking about it and talking about it and analyzing and theorizing for such a large amount of time, to see it come together like this is pretty awesome. Watched the gameplay and I was like, yep, it looks good. Gotcha. Yeah. I think it's hard because, like, another thing is, like, with a trail like this, my thinking, right, is what you're trying to capture is the chaotic nature of the gameplay. And so to do that, like, in a visually consistent way that connects with everybody might be difficult. Fuck, this is so rad. This is so rad, dude. I'm going to be watching that cinematic trailer for the next few years, probably. Ran down my pants. Thank you, Dodgy. Thank you. Happy tears indeed. Intro film was amazing. Yeah, Angel, I agree. The Hopium was worth it. Yeah. Yeah, it's just, yeah, right. And especially taking a big bet on it, and all of us here who've been like, really thinking about it a lot for such a long time. Very cool. Hope we'll see more stuff like this cinematic. Absolutely. Yeah, that would be sick. Shot half a year ago or something like that, and the raw gameplay footage is obviously very recent. Yeah. Discovered you working in the trailer. Really enjoyed finding out about the game as I worked on it. So sick. Do different classes have many voiced interactions? Lars was talking about that as something that they want to add in. They did have voice lines in the version that I played, but I don't think that was like a work in progress still. But it did operate the way that he was saying. I just think some of the context stuff wasn't in yet. In terms of, like, when you do something, your character saying it, like certain locations that hadn't been developed for yet. Don't get about the negative sentiment is why some people were crapping on the gameplay before it was even revealed. Yeah, that's it, right, Ace? That's been like the last year. Surprisingly deep lore and really cool community, it seems. Yeah, for sure. 2 years worth on cinematic alone, yeah. And dude, September 23rd. I haven't even talked about that. What do you guys think? Can we wait 5 months? Or not even? Can we wait 4 months, or something like that? 5 months? Went to YouTube and GameStop straight up name dropped the location for the 4th map that's coming with launch. Went to their YouTube and GameSpot. Well, really? What is it? Also, how do you manage stream? I had like 50 things going off at once, basically Overstim Simulator. I think I just miss a lot, probably. Haven't added character customization. I don't know if there's gonna be like. It depends what you're referring. Like in terms of like, like in like I don't think you're gonna like design your face or your features or stuff like that, right? Thank you, Fury. I do think that there is gonna be. Well, yeah, there's gonna be like more to announce. I think on the customization side later on. Does the map close or push you towards evac? It's just a timer when I played. Just a timer. No like a bubble area or PUBG or Fortnite kind of thing. Gifted the game for guessing the launch. Oh, Dodgy has that information. I don't know, Dodgy, if who got closest to September 23rd day. I guess we have to wait and make sure, that it comes out on that day. But yeah, I don't know who got the thing yet. I haven't checked with Dodgy. A lot of people came in for codes, which I stated like 20 times there in Bond server. DMs I got asking for codes. Did you put it in the title though, Dodgy? That may have just been a communication oversight, perhaps. Spidey won. Oh, you love to see it. You love to see it. Congrats, Spidey. Was it not? Maybe it was on the announcement in the Discord. Force map is on the marathon per a short on GameStop's YouTube channel and will apparently be high challenge level. I just want to be a Bob. In my heart, you'll always be a Bob Forebear. Or sorry, as we call you around here, Fur Bear. Feel so vindicated about my 2025 release prediction today. Also buying the shirt right now. Fuck yeah, Wistrea. Good stuff. It was like the whole title. Looking at the marathon website, it looks like you'll eventually be able to go to the UESC marathon. Haining in orbit. Fuck yeah. Plus 10 alpha code giveaway. Yeah. Really staunch Bond for that. I gotta apologize. Yeah. No, I hate it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Forebear. Although maybe we do get a furry skin for a glitch here. What do you think? Some cat ears, maybe? But you love it. That's how it is. All right, guys. I appreciate you all. This has been amazing. Super cool. If you want to hear, if you guys came in late, you want to hear me, I recorded a podcast with Bife in the beginning of this, and then I recorded a interview with Lars earlier, Lars Backan, who is the one of the senior design leads on Marathon. So a lot of cool stuff. I have my personal breakdown of the gameplay trailer is also live on my channel. And what else? Valve the Disciple stream tomorrow. So should be fun. Should be fun. You're gonna go watch your breakdown in Rilo's video. Great stuff today. Happy for you getting this info. Proud of your commitment. Thank you so much, True Pac-Man. You've been around for such a long time, man. I appreciate you. Seriously. But yeah, everybody, have a great day. I appreciate you all. And say it, Jake. What do you want me to say, Forebear? Fur bear? You won't yuck someone's yum? Gotcha. Okay. All right, everybody. I'm going to end on a face as you do. Maybe one of these.